At the start of it all, we get a rundown of some famous names in the mage world. In this fantasy setting, they're seen as legends in magic history. Even their apprentices had to dive into their theories, and those who didn't pursue magic still learned about their stories and accomplishments. These are the figures who for centuries boosted the Empire's reputation. People called them the Empire's heroes. Next, we see the library at Artemis Academy, which is run by the Imperial family. Inside, students are studying while someone remarks that they aren't heroes or wise, as they didn't make their own mark in history and are just seen as useless and talentless. Only one person really struggled to raise these fools to great mages, suffering a lot to teach them. A calm silence follows the previous voice. Then we spot a special black book that murmurs and sighs, saying complaining won't help. This little artifact begs for anyone, even a terrible person, to pick it up. The only clear memory it has is getting hit by a truck in its past life. Then, when it shut its eyes and opened them again, it found itself turned into a magical book in a different world. Not just any book, but one filled with tons of magical knowledge. At first, everything was confusing, and it thought the situation was unfair. Still, it found something entertaining to do. We see a flashback where it played a part in creating all those wise figures, being the one who shaped them. It explains that making a great mage wasn't hard. All they had to do was open it, and by reading, they'd gain magical knowledge. We see a memory from the past where a young person summoned a huge three-headed serpent. The book mentally screams in fear at this massive problem. Quickly, the boy or girl whose gender isn't specified casts a fireball, completely obliterating the creature charging at them. Right after, with a nervous grin, they ask what their master thinks and if they did it right. But the book quickly slaps their face with its pages, calling them an idiot and explaining they shouldn't channel magical energy so close, making the kid apologize. In the end, their theories and knowledge were pretty complex, needing a lot of explanations to be understood. It could grasp concepts instinctively, which is why it called the kids. It taught those without talent. For thousands of years, it trained countless apprentices, which also helped relieve its stress. But now this artifact wonders why it's stuck rotting away in this place. It explains that every time its previous owner dies, it has to start over. That's why our protagonist is here now. It's been over 300 years since it last trained a mage, and now it just wants to train to ease its stress. So our hero starts shouting loudly, begging someone to read it. As it yells, someone walks by, catching its interest. The boy with a stack of books reveals he's looking for something here. He mentions that the librarian said what he's after is nearby. Our protagonist gets confused since someone finally showed up in this place. Suddenly, it starts shouting, asking the boy to look its way. But it quickly goes quiet, realizing it can't be heard. Only someone who has fulfilled the contract or made contact can hear its voice. There's no way a simple shout could reach the boy. But suddenly, that small hand pulls the book. The young man gets curious since he just heard a sound from that spot. While staring at the book, he stays quiet and watches. Our hero realizes it's not the time to be nervous. It needs to stay calm and adjust its voice to sound at least decent. It soon starts whispering to the young man, confusing and scaring him. The young guy looks around, wondering who's calling him. But our protagonist tells him to check out his hands. Then he introduces himself as Grimoire, a legendary magical book. The boy in glasses is totally blown away. He thought a notebook couldn't talk, but our protagonist urges him to flip the cover. If he does, a surprise awaits him. Suddenly, the book starts flipping its pages on its own as the wind catches them. It tells him he'll soon surpass even a low-level mage, reaching the average and then some, eventually becoming a great wizard. The young man sits down, asking what that vision he saw was. The book reveals it's a glimpse of the future, shown by a spell it cast. It explains that his magical talent, which is pretty incredible, will be unlocked thanks to the book, making him a legendary mage remembered for ages. But our protagonist knows this is all a big lie he just made up. He doesn't really believe the boy has any magical talent. It's just a trick to get him to read. But in reality, it's not a lie that the book can turn him into a great mage. However, the young man says he has other plans. He reveals he doesn't want to be a mage, which is the opposite of what the book thinks. Our hero is totally confused and shocked. He urges the young man to think again since he could make him the greatest mage ever. With a funny look, the boy explains that he doesn't want that because his dream is to be a true royal knight, serving the kingdom and fighting with a sword. Then our hero asks for his name and the boy says it's Chanayun's Bella. The book, feeling stressed and impatient, shouts that it has been watching him and sees he has no sword skills, which the boy doesn't believe. Our protagonist suggests he become an arcane knight, using both magic and sword skills to shine in battles. The boy thinks this over and gets excited, saying it all sounds awesome, which the book agrees with. Then our protagonist asks him to open the cover, promising to turn him into a legendary arcane knight, and the boy agrees. As he opens the book, a spell forms in the air, and our protagonist thinks he's finally found someone. The boy in glasses is amazed by the spell, but it also freaks him out. Suddenly, a golden symbol appears above his head. Then, the Grimoire's voice announces that it's granting permission to teach the bearer. This means he's now bonded to interact with and teach the young man until he dies. Our protagonist thinks that his lonely wait of 300 years is finally over since his training is back on track. Suddenly, he starts shouting in joy, a bit carelessly. The boy with glasses notices a slight change in the book's tone, probably due to excitement. Then it suddenly shouts that it will finally escape the cursed shelf it's been stuck on for so long, confusing the boy who realizes he's being played. He then tells the magical book he's changed his mind and actually doesn't want to learn magic. In fact, the young man comes from a family of knights and doesn't want to be kicked out because of this, so he apologizes. After that, our protagonist, the book, goes silent before saying that's nonsense. Annoyed, he insists it doesn't matter if they kick him out. He'll give him everything he wants, and he shouldn't fear his father. He explains that by learning magic, he'll become 10 times stronger than his father and could even kill him, to which the boy replies he doesn't want to kill his dad. The boy tries to stay calm, while our protagonist thinks about the 300 long years wasted on a foolish boy who won't listen. Soon the nerd wanting to be a bodybuilder suggests introducing another student to the artifact to form a new contract. But the artifact says that's impossible, leaving the bespectacled boy confused. Annoyed, our protagonist explains that once the contract is made, it can't be broken until the other party dies. The young man is shocked by this sudden revelation from our protagonist, who then starts insulting the nerd, saying he shouldn't have made the contract. Scared, the boy tries to apologize, but our protagonist just calls him an idiot, saying he'll never be a knight no matter how hard he studies. Embarrassed, the boy starts apologizing more sincerely, admitting he didn't think it through. Out of nowhere, he gets really angry and yells at the artifact to shut up, saying it has no right to insult him. After all, it practically forced him into this contract, yet it dares to mock a knight, leaving our protagonist speechless. With that, the young man puts the artifact back on the shelf. He points out that the artifact has been sitting on the shelf for 300 years, so it can wait another 80 until he dies, which is when the contract will finally end. Our protagonist tries to protest, but the boy is set on finding a new holder after he's gone. Then, our hero even tries to use his authority to make him stay. He commands the boy to stop, claiming it's an order backed by his authority, which confuses the kid. Our protagonist realizes he's in a bind since his power isn't working, meaning he'll have to wait until that annoying boy dies. Right after, he yells for him to just die already. Suddenly, the artifact jumps off the shelf, yelling for that stupid kid to bury his head in the ground and die. As the boy walks away, our protagonist keeps throwing insults until, out of nowhere, the young man slips on a piece of paper nearby. He starts to fall, confusion and fear spreading across his face. He hits his head on the ground, dying too soon while our protagonist watches. The artifact groans in total shock at how bizarre this all turned out. After a bit, our protagonist mentions it took him half a day to find the boy's body. The body is quickly taken away, and the library is shut down again, going back to its usual quietness like it has for centuries. We see the clock ticking away the hours. Our protagonist sighs in boredom, frustrated that he thought he had finally escaped this place. Of course, he's also upset about the boy's death since it means losing 300 years of waiting. But now it doesn't matter, as the holder's death marks a new chapter for the artifact. It wonders where it will be teleported next, maybe to a fancy palace library, a filthy slum sewer, or even an old shelf in a street market. What matters is that it's better than being stuck in that place for so long. But before it can think more, footsteps echo from outside the library. The protagonist is confused because it doesn't make sense for anyone to show up at this time. It wonders who could be there at such a weird hour and under these circumstances. The door glows strangely, like mana from someone talented. The sound isn't a key unlocking it, it's someone forcing it open. It wonders if it's a thief, but quickly realizes they're using a lockpick. This isn't just some petty criminal. The door swings open, and we see the legs of the newcomer. But the protagonist is puzzled by what it sees, as the uniform belongs to the academy. Realizing the intruder is just a young student from the academy, it wonders if the school is some sort of factory for crazies. Still, It doesn't make sense for the student to break in here at this hour just for kicks. Soon, the woman walks past the shelves. She seems to be searching for something, and our protagonist realizes she's checking through all the books. Suddenly, he thinks this might be his chance. She wonders out loud where what she's looking for could be. Our young protagonist is surprised to realize she might actually be looking for him. Quickly, he figures he needs to act fast since time is running out, and in a minute, the book will be teleported away. Then our protagonist shouts that he's right there in that spot. He says she almost found him and begs her to look at him. He's being pretty dramatic, calling out to her while she has her back turned. Desperate, he keeps shouting, but she can't hear him, until suddenly one of his cries breaks through to the young woman. It's his plea for her to read him. The girl spots the odd black-covered book and looks surprised as she turns toward it. With a powerful stomp, she charges forward with confidence. Our old protagonist sees this as a good sign since his voice finally reached the girl. She races toward him as he tells her to just open the cover. And then, the clock strikes midnight. It's been over 300 years since he was at this Imperial Family Academy, exactly in January. The girl successfully makes the pact. For the first time in a single chapter, our protagonist has found his second bearer. The night's veil still looms over the library. The girl, still exhausted, can only sigh after grabbing the book. Our protagonist thinks this person is really intriguing. Somehow, she avoided all the guards outside and slipped past the magical surveillance. Then, our dear book starts glowing gold, catching the girl's eye. In an instant, he takes form to face the girl directly. Before anything else, he asks for her name. She replies that her name is Riley. Surprised, he asks for her last name, and she says she doesn't have one and isn't part of any family. He says that's okay and decides to put some other questions aside, but he quickly asks the most important one. How did she know he was in the library? Especially since she seemed to know he was about to vanish. He points out that she even heard his voice as his final moments were ticking away. He explains that his voice is like telepathy, only audible to the contract bearer. Only someone with high magical sensitivity, like a dragon or spirit, can naturally hear him. Still, she's just a student at the academy and can pick up such a complex magical signal. However, she quickly says she doesn't know why, leaving our young protagonist confused. After all, she somehow heard his voice, which only adds to his bafflement. She was just wandering around and heard about what happened in the library, but then she heard his voice. She's intrigued because it didn't sound like an ordinary voice. Our protagonist realizes this is all quite sudden and absurd. In his mind, he wonders if this girl might have the same mana affinity as a dragon or spirit. It's not entirely impossible. Among humans, there's a rare chance for extraordinary talent and potential to emerge. But if this girl has that kind of talent, it could mean that among the apprentices he's trained, the greatest mage could rise. Then, he touches her nose and says he'll introduce himself since they're in this situation. The book, appearing as a child, introduces itself as Grimoire of Domato and declares it will make her a great mage. Later, we see the girl lighting a candle. Our protagonist asks where she sleeps since there are 5 beds and wonders where the others are. She replies that they went home. Confused, our favorite book asks why she hasn't gone home, and she explains that she doesn't have a last name. The young man goes quiet and reasons that even commoners have last names, so if she doesn't, it can only mean one thing. He asks her to explain more since he'll be teaching her and needs to know about her. She explains that when she was old enough to understand, she joined a thieves' guild and didn't even have a name. She was only called Toolno too. She shares that the first to join was no one, a guy in a similar situation, and to the guild members, they were just tools. Life went on and the girl followed orders every day. But being in a thieves' guild isn't fun after a while. Eventually, they started looking at her differently and having their own ideas. They made examples out of others, taking them out to stop any pushback, but it didn't matter anymore. Those guys just never got it. With no other options, she managed to escape the guild. Our protagonist, with a spark in his eye, says the next step is clear. After all, she ran into a high-level mage who saw her potential and got her into the academy, which she confirms. The young man thinks that since she came from a thieves' guild, sneaking into the library was a piece of cake for her. He then asks Riley if she's faced any bullying at the academy, and she says yes, but it's manageable for now. A friend named Michael has been helping her, and our protagonist acknowledges that. He reaches out his hand, suggesting they should get along since he'll train her to be a great sorceress. Riley, with a slight smile, says she's counting on him, but they're interrupted by someone shouting for her. Our protagonist looks confused, while Riley keeps her usual blank expression. The voice complains about having to sleep in a terrible place because of her, and the legendary little book wonders what's going on since there shouldn't be anyone else around. Realizing she's being bullied, our protagonist asks about it, and she admits that everything she told him was just a lie. Suddenly, the doors burst open, revealing 3 angry girls and 1 terrified one. The scene shifts to the next day, with the sun rising over the academy. Our protagonist, stuck in his book form, watches as his friend lies on the ground beaten up by those girls. She insists she's okay, but our wise old sage points out how tough it must be to deal with these nobles, since she'd get kicked out if she fought back. The old artifact, worn by time, notes that attending the academy like this will leave her with no time to learn. If even the boys are causing trouble, how can she learn magic? This hits her hard. The young girl stands up and asks what she should do, and our protagonist offers her 2 choices. She can either tough it out and learn magic from him in a really short time, or she can take the easy route and leave the academy. She starts to weigh her options, but the youthful book points out there's no clear better choice. After all, a tough life with a guaranteed future at the academy is a dream for many, but there's also a free life with an uncertain future outside. Witfiski leaves the young blonde girl in deep thought, and Riley finally makes her choice. A little while later, they both leave the academy where she studied. The book mentions that the withdrawal process takes less than 3 minutes, and the girl says it's not surprising since it's just filling out forms. She confirms she's really the only one who can see him, and our protagonist explains it's just a physical form for communicating with the contractor. In the end, though, it's all a letdown since the academy has many perks she didn't realize. Some of these include special artifacts as prizes from yearly tournaments and potions, with cool effects for top students. The blonde then asks why he's telling her this now when he could have mentioned it before she made her choice. With a cheeky smile, our bound protagonist asks if she really wants to regret it now, and she says that's not the case. The girl then explains that the storage room is on the other side of the main gate, so they need to head back, leaving our little book confused about the plan. In her usual flat tone, the young woman reveals that the original plan is just to steal the artifacts and resources from the academy. This confuses our protagonist, who doesn't get her reasoning at first. But she soon clarifies that with her master's teachings, if she'd stayed in Lutimus, those items would have eventually come to her. She smiles triumphantly and wraps up her explanation by saying it's not stealing, but claiming what belongs to her, even though our protagonist knows it's wrong. Soon they arrive at a darker spot, and our protagonist asks how she finds these exits, to which Riley replies that there's always a way. They start walking calmly while our protagonist looks sup. He notices that the path ahead is basically a crossroads and asks if she knows which way to go, but she says no. Our young book decides to teach her a basic technique. Since finding a known path is like pathfinding magic, the girl mentions she learned this in Glutamus. In no time, a blue glow surrounds her as she shuts her eyes, focusing hard. A sphere of energy forms in her hands while she murmurs an incantation. The sphere starts to pulse, shining a bright light that lights up the area. With that, the pathfinding magic kicks in, showing them the right way. The blue energy flows down both paths at once, revealing hidden traps and concealed spike pits. The girl spots 3 traps on the left path, while the right path leads to a dead end, so she suggests they go left. She asks what her book thinks, and our protagonist replies that it seems fine but feels a bit off. Since it's so predictable, that raises some red flags. She shouldn't let foolish rules hold her back because she's way better than that, and they should try a different approach. Instead of just casting a spell in one direction, Riley can easily send out the same energy in multiple directions. In no time, a burst of energy starts to surround them. Our book quickly tells her to unleash her magic freely in all 3 dimensions. But she needs to remember that this is just the start of a simple technique, and she has to do it carefully and with focus. She must pay attention to every bit of magic that comes back to her. This way, she can keep track of each magic particle she sends out and, more importantly, get a clear sense of her surroundings as one whole view. With her eyes closed, she starts to sharpen her energy sense. Our protagonist tells her to picture it like her own sight, and most importantly, as an extension of herself. Quickly, with her impressive skills, she realizes she can see everything like a detailed map. Soon, we catch a glimpse of the future, where they've already escaped the academy that held our dear book captive for so long. Amazingly, she has all the items the protagonist mentioned earlier in a bag. Our youthful book praises her, saying she did an amazing job, and he's surprised at how well she did. He adds that for a first try, it's the best he's ever seen, and now it's time to leave this place. He looks toward the horizon with a thoughtful expression, finally free after 3 long centuries in that dull, terrible place. He then turns to his companion and decides to clear the air. He wraps up by saying she's special in many ways, but still, she risked everything to find him. Most importantly, she even went as far as leaving the academy where she was doing so well, all to learn magic from the legendary book, which makes him wonder what her true goal is. The scene quickly shifts to a starry sky, which are actually embers floating up from a burning forest. From above, glowing embers fall toward a house already in flames. Inside, people are crying out for their lives while being attacked. The attackers are mages, casting fireballs that set ablaze those begging for help. Among the victims, we see Riley being pulled by a younger boy. Looking around in fear, she takes in the grim scene. Suddenly, someone yells at her to run faster, and she spots a man ahead. It's her beloved father, shouting for them to run as fast as they can without looking back. Back in the present, our protagonist asks her why she wants to learn magic. She seems a bit taken aback by the question. She quickly replies that she has goals that need strength, so she has to get stronger. Our protagonist thinks that those who seek magic often have revenge on their minds. She immediately confirms that her goal is revenge. The young man wants to ask for more details but knows it's not appropriate. Discussing someone's tragic past is never easy, and this situation is particularly sensitive, especially with a dark childhood like our dear Riley. He takes a moment to think, realizing they've just met and are still getting to know each other. But Riley cuts in, asking if he's going to say anything. He's confused and asks what she means, and she points out that he must have a reason. After all, anyone with self-respect has a purpose, and even a reincarnated book like him must have a reason for training mages like her. Kaboy thinks about why he teaches sorcerers. He shares his knowledge freely, but the real reason feels much darker. He then wonders if it really matters. With a serious expression, the magical book admits he does it, because it's his only source of fun in his trapped life. When you think about it, there's not much else to enjoy, so he finds joy in training new mages, which Riley seems to get. Soon, we see the room where they're meeting. Riley mentions she left the academy in a hurry and asks what his next move is. The young book asks if she has any suggestions from her professor. He then asks her to show him because it's really important. Riley quickly pulls out the paper and starts reading it calmly. The letter says she's recommended to go to the Oronte's magic tower, and the book immediately notices something about the name. But he starts to wonder where it's located. It should be one of the 5 major towers of the Empire, or at least a well-known magic tower. If he doesn't recognize it, it must have been established in the 300 years he spent in the library. The magic tower is a place for mages to connect, and becoming a great mage isn't just about skills. There's no better spot than a magic tower to build political power. Still, he's never heard of such an unusual name before. Suddenly, Riley grabs the magical book's attention, leaving him puzzled. She explains, looking confused, that the Oronte's magic tower is actually one of the 5 great magic towers, which only adds to the book's confusion. They're both now looking at a table with the book open. Quickly, the young girl explains that to get the magic tower, you first need to know about Ion Orontes, its founder. She shows an image of an old man from the book's pages. The youthful-looking book questions why there's a portrait of the man on his deathbed, but she quickly clarifies that this was during his prime. This leaves the book confused as she explains that the old man was at least 40 when the portrait was painted. When the book asks when he died, he's shocked to find out that Ein Irons is still alive, even though the portrait is over 300 years old. If our young protagonist had to guess, the old man might be a half-elf, but Riley quickly says he isn't and that it's rude to assume. Regardless, even though he reached the highest rank of mage, this man is seen as a pinnacle for achieving something greater than all archmages. The entire academic community is trying to give him the title of archmage since he single-handedly raised the status of the magic tower. But our protagonist thinks it still doesn't add up since 300 years have gone by. It's a long time, especially for him stuck in the library, which felt like forever, but it's not enough time to change the landscape of the Empire's magic towers, and he has no idea how that could have happened. The immortality Morgul dreams of still exists without him becoming one, and this was said by this man's teacher, Martha Farharij. This surprises our book boy. Ion Orontes achieved immortality and became a high-level archmage, lasting for hundreds of years. He shares the same dream as his teacher, Martha Farharij. This new info leaves our young protagonist quiet for a moment. After a bit, we see them in a different spot. The port is lit by the soft glow of the sunset. The light dances on the water, creating a calming scene. Riley looks really impressed by the royal capital, and our little book is surprised it's her first time there. The girl, totally excited, wants to explore right away, so the protagonist suggests they go for it. On the island, you can find a rare treat, unicorn skewers. The girl holding a bunch in her hand says it's a one-of-a-kind spot for legendary meat, but the book corrects her, revealing it's just lamb. Our clueless blonde is stunned, genuinely thinking it was from some mythical creature, leaving our protagonist surprised by her naivety. Annoyed, she shouts that she feels cheated and demands a refund, but the little book just tells her to eat up. So, Riley keeps munching while heading to a certain spot. Suddenly, our protagonist stops and looks up, catching Riley's attention. She follows his gaze to see a group of statues honoring the 5 greatest mages in the Empire's history. She shares that she heard they were brilliant geniuses with an incredible passion for magic. Our boy then says they weren't geniuses at all. They were just a bunch of fools. But they were the type to push through any challenge, which is what helped them grow. He remembers her asking about his goal in creating mages. He reveals that his aim is to turn the contractors into powerful mages. But on top of that, he has a personal reason. He wants revenge on those who turned him into a mere piece of paper. That's why his disciples face so many dangers. Martha even tried to create a resurrection ritual, but ultimately failed. As far as he recalls, his student had no disciples right up until her death. Confused, Riley wonders if Ian Arantes lied about his story, which our protagonist angrily confirms. He then extends his fists to his companion, declaring they're going to that tower because he can't forgive anyone pretending to be the disciple of his beloved student. With a calm smile, Riley says they'll make a promise. She'll seek revenge on Ian Arantes, and in return, our protagonist will help with her personal vendetta. With a satisfied grin, the protagonist thinks she's really young, but then he adds that he'll do his best. That day, they made a vow that would guide them on their journey as a symbol of vengeance, marking the start of their path together. Suddenly, we see our protagonist in a flashback about 5 years after he reincarnated as a groom warrior. He was stolen from a simple shop by a boy named Fendal, who survived by roaming the slums. The boy then named him Grimoire, claiming it comes from the old term for grimoire. Our protagonist refuses to be called anything but Grimoire, but the boy insists on that name. With the joyful smile of a child making their first friend, he calls him by the name given to the protagonist. The boy thinks about how he was his first contractor, and it remains a cherished memory. For him, who was confused right after becoming a grimoire, Fendal was his little light that brought a moment of happiness. In the end, he wanted to repay that kindness. Fendal then clasps his hands together, asking if he's doing it right since he doesn't feel anything. Our protagonist explains that the young man needs to wait a bit. He'll feel a slight tingling and should slowly guide the energy to his hands. The boy says it's working, but mentions it hurts a little, to which our protagonist reassures him that it's normal and to just keep going. Fendal says it's getting hot and harder to handle. With an arrogant tone, our protagonist tells him to stop whining. He has to endure everything to gain magical knowledge and must push through. But suddenly, the energy starts spiraling out of control, and the boy yells that it's too hot to bear, but he can't stop. Our protagonist shouts back, asking why he's rushing, warning that if he keeps it up, an accident might happen. But then, in an instant, his contractor's face explodes. Blood from the death of his little light splatters on him. He stands there silent, staring at the body of his first friend. All he can do is call his name, hoping he's still alive. The scene shifts to a carriage where our little book is seated, looking outside with a neutral expression. He quickly calls out to his blonde friend next to him. She turns to him, asking what's up. He glances at the coachman, subtly hinting that they shouldn't talk too openly with others around. Since the Bond Authority started, he and Riley have a good understanding. By using a bit of mana to speak, they can communicate mentally, like telepathy. In a flashback, the boy jokes that no one would ever think of making unicorn skewers, and Riley suggests a bet, which they both agree to. But he quickly realizes something. He tells Riley not to even think about doing something so crazy, and she confidently replies that she's already won the bet. She then asks why he didn't teach her such an easy trick before, leaving him puzzled. He starts to carefully choose his words. He thinks that, honestly, he finds it a bit cute when Riley whispers around others. But he knows if he says that, she'll get mad, so he decides to keep quiet. He's taken aback when Riley, in a teasing tone, says she knows all of Little Book's feelings. Changing the topic, he mentions that the Irantes Tower probably has a selection event. But they aren't looking for promising candidates like her. They want fully trained mages, which leaves Riley quiet for a moment, clearly thinking about what he said. The selection test is all about strict merit. For Riley to get into the Irantes Magic Tower, She has to give it her all and stand out from other skilled mages. He explains that regular mages spend their whole lives preparing for this test, which is why it's called the Graveyard of Prodigies. Still, they plan to take the test this year, which confuses him. After all, becoming an intermediate mage or better in just 6 months seems impossible. But Little Book confidently says it's totally doable. With his help, she'll ace the test in under 6 months. He smiles widely, assuring her that everything is set. Soon, the carriage stops at what looks like an abandoned cemetery. The coachman seems confused and a bit scared, noticing the heavy enchantments around, and asks if this is really the right place. Our protagonist confirms it is and tells him to leave them there. Once the older man leaves, they are alone. He tells her that this will be their training ground for the next 6 months. It's also where his former disciple hangs out, but the girl doubts anyone could still be alive after 300 years. With a hint of confidence, he says that he's neither alive nor dead. This just confuses her more, leaving her unsure of what to ask next. But he quickly reveals that one of his disciples became a lich. This disciple, surrounded by a dark aura, senses the presence of his former master and a younger girl. Only a power can turn into a lich, and when alive, this disciple was indeed great. The girl then asks where the lich is now since all she sees are trees. He replies that she'll have to find out for herself as it's part of a test. Even more puzzled, Riley asks what kind of test this is, feeling that something like this in such a place seems off. He sighs, saying that those who can't find him aren't worthy of learning magic, which makes Riley think this is all even stranger. With a blue aura glowing around her, she gets ready. Grimoire asks if she knows how to find him, and she confidently says she does. He thinks that finding the lich's hiding spot in this forest is the first step of the best training he knows. She starts casting her magic in different directions, but it gets deflected by another spell. Still, her mana keeps pushing forward, only to be blocked by several enchantment circles. The girl notes that there are many deception spells, admitting that the book's former student is really impressive. He just smiles confidently, clearly proud. Barrier spells, illusions, and magical distortions are all challenges Riley must face. The lich whispers that the girl with golden eyes looks pretty sure of herself, but even a skilled mage took 6 months to find his hideout, so she, being just an apprentice, has no chance. Still, she just beams a confident smile, knowing she'll pull it off. Our protagonist feels just as confident, not surprised by her pride. Riley's mana skills are at the level of a top-notch prodigy. Now, the blonde stands right in front of the towering lich, declaring that she's located him. Panicking, he asks how she found him so fast, coughing, and telling himself to chill out. He admits he was just trying to look cool after so long, but his surprise messed up his voice, leaving the girl confused. They both wait calmly as the skeleton takes a moment to gather himself. He rushes over, asking how she tracked him down so quickly, considering the last person took over 4 months. But Riley broke through the barrier in under 10 minutes by tracing the interfering magic backward. That level of mana skill is insane, making the lich wonder if the blonde really did find him so quickly. With a playful tone, she confirms she did, making the skeleton call her a monster. Soon, they wrap up their earlier chat and head into the hideout, while our book watches the mystical being. Eunice Cerberus lives in this eerie place, and our protagonist notes that his former student's odd habits are still the same. The book wonders if this could even be called a hideout, and the dark mage replies that his room is just ahead. Before long, they sit at a table, and the skeleton picks up a cup of tea. The girl seems uneasy about this, catching our dear book's attention. He quickly tells his former student to hide his aura since it's making his companion uncomfortable. In a sweet voice, the skeleton apologizes, saying he hasn't seen anyone in ages and isn't used to it. Our protagonist thinks about how his disciple broke the celestial laws and got cursed by the gods. As a necromancer, he naturally has a dark magic aura, so he became a creature that defies death, known as a lich. Our protagonist asks if she gets why he made a new disciple instead of sticking with an undead, to which the girl quickly nods. After all, a lich's base is dark magic, which is banned in the Empire. Those who practice it are followers of evil gods, necromancers, and dark mages. Even the thieves' guilds that supply illegal materials for these practices are enemies of the Empire. The main point is that there's a group called the Inquisition that punishes anyone linked to evil. Our protagonist asks how his colleague is doing, and the lich says nothing has changed since he became a lich, and he's been there for at least 2,000 years. He mentions spending most of his time studying dark magic and dealing with adventurers who found his hideout about 5 years ago. Surprised, Our protagonist asks if they really invaded, and the Lick humorously confirms it. He adds that he has no clue how they discovered the place, guessing it was just luck since they mistook it for a dungeon because of the aura. The adventurers attacked as soon as they spotted him, leaving him no choice but to fight back. Our protagonist then points out that liquid is dripping through his bones. The bound book asks what happened to those adventurers, and the skeleton admits he turned them into his servants. He gestures, saying they're right there at the moment. The skeleton introduces his servant, Jeremy, who is also his right-hand man. However, as soon as they see him, both freeze in shock, realizing something crucial. Our protagonist shouts angrily that Jeremy is a Death Knight, and he thought the person killed was just a regular adventurer. The young book asks how a regular adventurer could turn into a Death Knight, and Riley quickly recognizes the person. She points out that the sword at Jeremy's waist, with a golden lion on the hilt, belongs to the leader of the Inquisition. She remembers hearing that the leader vanished during a mission 5 years ago, and they're still looking for his body, hoping to find him alive. Our protagonist gets even angrier with his former student, while the skeleton insists he didn't know since he only fought off adventurers invading his hideout. The protagonist reflects that liches usually have their minds a bit warped by dark magic. He used to check on the Lick's mental state and make adjustments. Over the last 300 years, those rings have loosened up, making him sigh deeply as he realizes he'll have to make some changes again. The skeleton clears his non-existent throat and points out that the disciple is still just an apprentice but somehow made it here. He asks if there's a specific reason for that. Our protagonist insists that this kid can handle his personal training, and the skeleton totally agrees. The book asks if the Lich remembers the last disciple he brought, Marta Farhellick, and the undead quickly recalls her. He finds out that Marta is linked to those troublemakers. The skeleton figures out there's a fake pretending to be Marta's disciple, and asks if the master really plans to storm the Oronte's magic tower for revenge. Our protagonist confirms this with a slightly serious tone. The dark mage questions why they need revenge by going into the Oronte's magic tower. He suggests it might be easier to hit up another magic tower and keep control, since places like the five great towers are overshadowed by Orontes. Our protagonist thinks this is definitely the simplest and smartest way to go. But blushing a bit, he admits that slowly tearing them apart from the inside and doing it himself is way more fun. The skeleton shakes a bit and says this reason is pretty strange, to which the protagonist snaps back that his former student is the last one who should judge. Soon after, the cloaked monster asks Ashley if she's ready to follow her master's plan despite the risks. With a reassuring smile, she says she finds this method thrilling and fun, leading the Lich to call her a weirdo too. Time jumps a bit, showing Riley amazed in a special spot. The skeleton explains that the magic flow here is different, and he spent a long time crafting this space with his master. The young book thinks that 6 months until the selection exam is a super short time for an apprentice to level up to an advanced mage. Even a prodigy like Riley will struggle with this. But if they had 4 times that amount of time, they could pull it off in 2 years. Riley admits this space is truly amazing, as time seems to move differently here. Both the master and former student agree that creating this place was quite a challenge. Now, the young girl has 2 big advantages over other mages. The first is her outstanding physical skills from her past as a thief, and the second is her incredible and natural connection with mana. From now on, they'll focus only on these 2 things and zero in on one type of magic. The plan is for her to learn to dispel magic, which the girl quickly recognizes. It's explained that dispel magic is a counterspell that cancels out other spells. This means she can make even fireballs in the sky disappear all at once, like a magic trick. Then our tattooed boy asks if the blonde knows why she's being trained in this, and she nods. She explains that the book wants her to use the spell to stop opponents from using magic during the selection exam. After that, she should use her physical skills for hand-to-hand combat, and the young boy confirms that's exactly the plan. The book simply says she must ensure her opponents can't use magic, no matter how, which the skeleton thinks is unfair. But the bound boy explains that this is the only way to deal with mages during the exam, leaving the training up to the Lich. The girl, confused, asks to hold on a second since she didn't fully get the last part. But the skeleton is already channeling his magic, which Riley tries to stop. She says she doesn't know how to use dispel magic, revealing that it's usually taught in the 3rd year, which she hasn't even started yet. Quickly, the skeleton casts a spell, saying that's even better. He then reveals that someone can get better fast after just a few tries, leaving the blonde even more puzzled. After a bit, our protagonist reflects quietly. Alongside him, his former student watches in silence. The boy then points out that skills usually improve when someone gets hit more often, questioning why the young girl doesn't want to be hit. He wonders why she's not making progress, and the Lich steps in to clarify. We then flash back to a scene from their fight where the skeleton cast a spell at the girl. She stays quiet, preparing for the spell and positioning her legs strategically. She quickly dodges the attack that could have easily taken her down, and the skeleton explains that this is why. Our main character starts to wonder if his teaching style is off. It's only been 3 days since he met his partner, but he feels like he knows her pretty well already. She's got a huge sense of pride and doesn't like showing her weaknesses, probably because she hates failing. For members of the Thieves Guild, failure isn't an option, and he wonders if the pressure she's felt since childhood is still haunting her. He keeps an eye on her, thinking that might be why. Or maybe it's just her fear of failing that makes her want to run away. But the girl quickly shoots down that idea, saying it's not about that at all. Looking puzzled, she admits she was just scared of getting hurt, which the skeleton realizes might be true. With a lighthearted grin, the boy tells her to push those worries aside. The skeleton quickly figures out that she doesn't understand the method's core principle. He explains that there are 3 techniques: spotting the opponent's spellcasting, diving into the spell's source, and understanding the magical form. He realizes Riley doesn't know all the steps to break the spell, but he has some good news for her. In his human form, he tells her to stay calm because he's already taught her what she needs. Then, the skeleton uses his magic, and Grimoire sees that she was stressed about getting hurt, but now Riley can think more clearly. The girl reaches out to the spell orb, giving it a gentle tap. Still unsure, the blonde asks if she knows everything she needs to know, and our protagonist confirms it. Quickly, she explains that all she's learned is tracking mixed with telepathy, and asks if she should use both at the same time. He starts to explain, but she cuts him off, saying she gets it and has no more questions. Speaking through telepathy to the tattooed boy, she tells him she'll find her own way, remembering his words about not following rules from mediocre people. Since she's way above that, Riley steps forward again. She extends her hand, declaring that she'll carve her own path, just like when she learned from the Grimoire. With her eyes closed, she realizes this is a mana circuit shaped like a maze. She opens her eyes in the magical realm. Quickly, she uses tracking to map out the entire layout of that complex spell. In her mind, she remembers navigating through mazes before, like the underground path of Artemis and the tricky route to the Lich's hideout. The book acknowledges this and tells her to break down the magical formulas one by one. She needs to do it quietly to avoid being detected, as others might disrupt the spell if they notice. This is basically telepathy, used as a secret way to communicate for the desired outcome. Soon, the spell in the skeleton's hand shatters into countless magical fragments. Our protagonist beams with pride, congratulating her on her success. Shaking, she asks how many hours have gone by, and he tells her it's 4 hours. Breathing a sigh of relief, she thinks it's only been 1 hour in the real world. But the book corrects her, saying it's actually the other way around. 4 hours have passed outside, while she's been battling this low manosphere for 16 hours. She takes a deep breath as her legs start to feel weak. Realizing time moves faster than she thought, Riley accepts this, and the book confirms that's just how it is. Quickly, Riley reassures him that she's starting to get it and will be quicker next time. Our boy smiles, feeling optimistic about the situation. They realize that time has been moving on relentlessly. The seasons changed rapidly, one after another. Outside, people were already getting ready for autumn. Riley kept training with the Death Mag to boost her physical strength even more. Finally, September came with autumn. When the sun sets earlier, it's that time of year when the magical world pays extra attention. It's the season for the selection exams. We see our main character breaking down another spell. This time, Ian the Skeleton looks impressed. With a confident grin, Riley watches the magic shards fade away. Riley proudly announces that she nailed the dispelling, marking the end of her 6 months of training, which felt like 2 years. With a bit of confidence, he says she could even take on a mid-level mage now, which surprises her. They decide to wrap things up, and the skeleton thanks her for her hard work, saying he'll get Jeremy to whip up a tasty dinner. The master praises his former student, who modestly brushes it off until a piece of paper slips from his cloak. The boy notes that with a little more polish on her offensive magic, Riley could be a nearly perfect mid-level mage. But then, Riley picks up the paper and the young book asks what it is. It's a plan for world domination, starting with creating a Death Knight and making a chimera that can use magic. Both of them are stunned by what they read, and the room falls silent. They turn to their companion, who stands there in a funny way. The master questions if his former student really wants to take over the world while he was gone, thinking the Lich wants to destroy the continent. The skeleton yells that he was actually trying to do that, but only wanted to claim a small city in the Far East as his kingdom. Riley sighs and facepalms, shocked by what she's hearing. The Lich admits this was his goal, but the book worries he might cause trouble soon if left unchecked. The mage scratches his head in a funny way, making the bound book ask why he's acting like that. Trying to look innocent, the skeleton insists he hasn't caused any issues, which makes our protagonist shout in exasperation. As the Lich's wild domination plan is revealed, something happens in the northern part of the empire. There, a girl in black walks through the snow, and in the distance, some figures can be seen. This hints at a second conspiracy happening at the same time. The setting is a road leading to the mage city of Wilhelm. The henchmen gather in a spot, hiding their faces. One of them tells his boss that it's that person. Just by her outfit, it's clear she's someone very wealthy. With a slight smirk, the man comments that her walk is clumsy and shows no caution, making her an easy target. He then aims at his companion's unsheathed weapons, saying she should be more careful alone. He quickly fires an arrow, yelling for her to die with this shot. It seems to work as the arrow hits her right in the back. She collapses, her red blood staining the white snow. The henchmen cheer for their boss, calling it a perfect shot. As they loot her body, they find several jewels and wonder how valuable they must be, noting that such treasures are rare in most dungeons. The leader thinks it's an incredible stroke of luck until one of his guys calls him over. Annoyed, he starts to complain but is cut off when a scared man urges him to look. To everyone's shock, the girl they just killed is now standing in front of them, her gaze as fierce as can be. The scared man, filled with doubt, asks what on earth she is. Everyone starts yelling that the treasure and body have disappeared, catching their leader's attention. He quickly realizes that the person before them is no ordinary girl, but a mage. Panicking, he tells everyone to grab their swords and weapons to get ready for a fight. He insists they still have a chance since they outnumber her. But the young girl just gives a sadistic, wicked smile at their seemingly pathetic display. The gray-haired man mocks her as just a spoiled, fancy girl, but he's suddenly interrupted. In an instant, he's hit by a strange weapon that cuts off his arms. He starts groaning and gritting his teeth in pain. Out of nowhere, a chilling scream bursts from his lips as he sees his hands shaking on the ground. The girl lifts his chin while he screams, and with a twisted grin, she warns him that messing with a mage comes with a heavy cost. A little while later, an old man shows up at the scene. He scans the area and quickly figures out that a mage took on some bandits here. He guesses it happened about 5 hours ago and notes that this isn't just murder, it's a one-sided slaughter. The carriage driver asks what they should do, and the old man suggests they just ignore it and report it to the guards in the nearest town. As they head back to the caravan, he thinks that as long as they stay put, they should be fine, and the others agree. Inside the caravan, a familiar face comes into view. The old man looks ahead and recognizes the figure. It's Riley, carrying our main character in her arms. He calls out to her, asking why she's visiting Wilhelm. She replies that she's there to take the entrance exam for the 5 great magic towers, which visibly saddens the old man. He worries that she's basically throwing her life away, especially after seeing the earlier massacre, since the exams attract all sorts of mages, including some who might kill. He thinks she should at least be able to defend herself. He admits that reaching the lower ranks at her age is impressive, but insists she needs more training before taking the exam. The girl dryly thanks him for his advice, but firmly states she's already made her choice. The old man falls silent, sounding even more somber. He closes his eyes, thinking another promising candidate might meet an early end this year. He sighs deeply, feeling pity for the blonde girl. Our protagonist wonders why the old man is interfering, and Riley feels the same way. After a while, they finally arrive, and Riley can't help but think how amazing this place is, since it's her first time seeing such a high-tech city. It's explained that this area is cold and snowy all year, with modern houses decorated with flags hanging from the lampposts. Above, floating ships glide through the sky. Suddenly, a stir breaks out as the townsfolk wonder what's going on. It quickly becomes clear that it was Roy, the neighbor, who messed up one of his experiments. Our protagonist thinks that while the appearance has changed, the vibe is still the same. He then asks Riley if she knows the way. The young girl admits she has no clue, and our young book finds it frustrating since the city has changed so much that he doesn't recognize it either. Meanwhile, someone watches them from one of the alleys, while our protagonist realizes the Examination Administration building isn't on the map. Riley starts channeling her mana to find the way. A beam of energy spreads through every possible path in the shiny city. It reveals 10 potential spots, all clean buildings with restricted access. Our young book thinks they should have followed the old man earlier, and Riley agrees, realizing they should have put up with his complaints. He notices how much has changed over the past 300 years, but he doesn't see that someone is watching them. A man approaches cautiously yet friendly, noting that Riley seems new here. The book takes note of his bulky tunic, a common style in Wilhelm. More importantly, he senses a faint, vague energy around the man, identifying him as a novice mage. The man explains that using magic to find their way is pointless, because the leftover magical energy from experiments interferes with spells. The girl asks if there's another way to find the path, and the older man thinks there might be. With a charming and seemingly innocent smile, he suggests asking a friendly local for help could be a great idea. Riley wonders what they should do, and our protagonist reveals that it's entirely up to her. The blonde girl then says they'll be in his care, prompting the man to ask where they want to go. She replies that they're heading to the Selection Exam Administration office. The man leads them, saying he understands, and asks if she's taking the exam. She confirms that she is. After chatting for a while, Riley simply says she gets everything he said. As they walk and he keeps talking on, she politely cuts in, asking how long it'll take. With a confident grin, he says they're going to the Selection Exam Administration office, which is about a 15-minute walk. But the girl clarifies that's not what she meant. She then hints at the man's true identity. She says what she really wants to know is about the spell he's been casting on her for a while. The man's expression turns serious, almost cold. In a low voice, he asks when she first noticed it. The girl shares that she figured it out from the start, and we see her lips glowing faintly pink. She explains that he always stressed certain parts of his sentences. She realized he was using a special tone to weave magic into his words, a technique known as enchanting. She asks if that's not true, and he can only smile, impressed by her insight. Riley knows he was using that special tone to hide an enchantment and cast a spell on her, and she laughs at him. With tears in his eyes, he asks why she followed him even after knowing his true intentions. The book mentions that the spell he cast was linked to paralysis. It's a pretty straightforward spell that completely freezes someone. Victims are often sold off as test subjects to dark mages or into the illegal slave trade. This happens a lot in this city, and the victims are usually young people like Riley. But there's a hidden reason why they followed this man. Riley reveals that even though he's an adult, he won't be able to hurt her at all. Annoyed, the man grits his teeth and lets out a soft laugh. He quickly realizes the girl has gotten cocky after reaching the basic level of lesser mages, but he plans to teach her a tough lesson. He says that among lower-level mages, the skill gap can be as huge as the distance between heaven and earth. Our protagonist, super excited, comments that Riley is like the sky while he is the earth, leaving her speechless. But she quickly brushes him off, slightly annoying him, and asks how many targets he's faced so far. He replies that he's faced a total of 13. With a hint of pride, he claims that they all fell victim to his laughter, and of course his good looks, thinking he's quite the catch. The two go quiet as the man in front of them mentions that some say he has a face that could make any woman cry. Our protagonist, still giving him the middle finger, agrees, saying he's right since they must be crying every night after seeing him. In that sense, he must be skilled at making women cry, which really angers him. Flames start to surround him as he hurls insults at our young protagonist, calling her a wench. Soon, a blazing fireball forms in his hand. It turns into a spear with a bright glowing tip. This is an attribute awakening spell, specifically fire, and he controls it. Our protagonist thinks that even though this guy is a lower-level novice, his control is impressive. He then charges at the girl with the spear. Our dear-bound protagonist sees this as a perfect chance for some hands-on experience. The older man throws his attack at the young girl. She watches the spell with enviable calm, keeping her usual cool. Her aura wraps around the flames coming her way. She activates accelerated thought, helping her focus better. It's revealed that during her training with the Lich, she developed a special ability, a dynamic vision that's way better than a human's. When someone like Riley channels magic into their brain, their thought speed skyrockets. We see the spear just inches from her eye. Out of nowhere, several magic circles pop up around the deadly attack. She's already figuring out the complicated spell. In a flash, she raises her hand, glowing with a bluish-purple aura, completely neutralizing the spear aimed at her. The man is totally blown away. He's never seen such talent from someone so young. He gets scared when Riley effortlessly deflects her magic toward him. He asks what kind of trick that was, and she pretends she doesn't get it. As she gets ready to cast another spell, the girl wonders if this is the big difference between heaven and earth she mentioned earlier. Grimoire watches closely and realizes his friend's attack is unlike any other, just a pure mass of magical energy without any fancy moves. In a heartbeat, Riley unleashes her powerful blue magic at the man. The man is completely stunned and sweating buckets, especially since the girl is unbelievably fast. The blue magic ball slams right into her opponent. This spell is called the True Magic Missile. Hit squarely, the man is badly hurt. Riley mentions that thanks to her opponent, she learned an important lesson. She explains that just being good at magic doesn't guarantee success, and results in battle can depend on different traits and skills. The girl and her friend look at the opponent lying on the ground and realize he's dead. Grimoire is in total shock at what he sees. He asks her if she just killed a man, clarifying he's not trying to make a big deal out of it. The young man concludes that he also played a part in the opponent's death. In despair, he kneels and begs for the man to come back to life, while his friend just watches. He says they came here just for some practical experience, and it's unfair for someone to die because of it. Despite his desperate cries, the man doesn't come back to life. Days go by, and one morning, snow starts falling. Riley and Grimorcio stand in front of a building that's supposed to be the administration office. It's explained that the girl used her pathfinding ability to check the 10 suspected locations of the office. Still, no one knew where it was, even after she asked everyone. But after checking all the buildings, the young woman finally found what she was looking for. Grimorio spots a sign for the building and asks how his friend noticed it, thinking someone is hiding the location on purpose. He asks if she remembers where all the buildings they visited were. Riley says yes, and that she marked them all on her map. Looking at the pattern made by the marked buildings, the girl realizes it forms an inverted pentagram and a magic circle. Grimorio calls the people at the administration office jerks. The young man explains they use the whole city of Wilhelm as a magic circle, placing special buildings at each spot. The explanation reveals they use concealment, magical barriers, invisibility, and illusions to confuse anyone who tries to enter. The boy wonders why they would do that while his friend studies the map. They decide to go inside the building to find out why. Once inside, they come across a red-haired woman sitting at a desk. She quickly notices them and turns her chair to face them. The woman congratulates the young duo for passing the first phase of the selection exam. She explains that the snowflake-shaped symbol on the girl's hand proves she's a candidate for the exam. Riley looks puzzled at her hand as the red-haired woman explains that this symbol lets them use Wilhelm's facilities. As they get ready to leave, the girl mentions she and her friend passed the first test by luck, and he replies that the task was boring but not hard. The girl has great pathfinding skills, which is why they finished the test of visiting the 10 buildings so quickly. It's explained that the buildings are now marked on the map, making the task tougher. Plus, there were 10 suspected locations for administrative offices. All these factors were part of a single exam. The woman with red hair says that the admin office only shows up after you find all 9 other spots. Grimorio figures that you'd have to deal with a bunch of hurdles, track down all the locations, and then finally locate the last office. He thinks this hunt must be a nightmare for other mages, except for Riley, who has a knack for finding her way. Just before they leave, the admin woman calls out to the girl again. She warns her to steer clear of any trouble with other test takers before the next exam. The protagonist looks puzzled, not really getting what the woman meant. The young woman wonders what that was all about, but her friend says it's nothing. He explains that sometimes there are idiots who start fights to size up other examinees before the test. Riley realizes she's not involved, but her friend warns that some people might ignore the advice and try to stir up trouble. Suddenly, the young woman freezes and tenses up. She mentions the Grimoire, and D'Amato agrees. The protagonist starts to feel a strong, deadly intent. Feeling a strange vibe, the young woman recognizes a familiar mana from when she passed the corpses along the carriage path. The boy points out that the one giving off this intent is the same person behind the corpses. He suggests they track down the source of the murderous vibe, and the girl concentrates. Riley pulls up the pathfinding app, and a blue vision pops up. She drops that vision and tries to see everything just through mana, spotting various people surrounded by it. In the crowd, she spots someone in a red shirt standing out. The protagonist realizes this person is the one behind the deadly intent. Oddly enough, the person in red is also watching Riley. She wonders what to do, and her friend asks if she thinks she can take on the opponent. D'Amato advises the young woman to stay in a defensive stance as much as she can. Something catches the girl's eye, and she sees red rays coming toward her. The young woman hesitates, unsure whether to break the spell or duck. She realizes the spell is coming in too fast, and before she can counter or dodge, she'll get hit. So she decides to cast a doubleable spell, sacrificing some flesh to protect her bones. Riley opts to raise a barrier against the incoming attack, hoping to break it quickly and slip through a gap. Meanwhile, she prepares a magic missile to counterattack. Even though she thinks fast, when she sees the opponent's spell closing in, she realizes there's no way to escape. At this moment, the person in the red shirt gets even closer. Panicking, the girl understands she can't stop the opponent's spell. Still, she fires her magic missile and manages to block the red laser heading her way. A bloodstain appears on the ground. The grimoire drops, now completely covered in blood. The person in the red shirt smiles. Riley looks at her hand, confused about what just happened. She stands still in the crowd, trying to process the recent events. The young woman coughs, still not grasping what went down. Her opponent in the red shirt stands before her and explains that the recent fight only took place in her mind. It's called a mental battle, a simulation created in a state of deep focus. The explanation continues, saying it works by detecting the opponent, sensing their deadly intent, and figuring out how to react. Riley realizes everything she went through was just an illusion, and the person in red is still facing her. When the hood comes off, it reveals a girl who asks Riley if she just saw her own death. An inverted pentagram is visible on the new girl's hand. Grimoire quickly realizes she's in the selection exam and ignored the warning about the creepy scene Riley just witnessed, which must have been caused by a twisted assassin. The boy warns his friend to watch out for the new girl, saying she seems like a real psycho. Grimoire mentions that no sane person would use magic to kill. Later, the girl in the red shirt shows up at a table, munching on food, and asks if it's good. Riley, who's there too, agrees that it's delicious. They mention they're at the best restaurant in Wilhelm while the protagonist enjoys her meal, though her friend looks really uneasy. Riley is surprised to learn that her opponent is covering the bill, explaining she's treating her because she was rude before. The blonde girl's eyes light up. She tells Grimoire she likes the new girl, but he warns her not to get too close. The young woman insists that anyone who shares food can't be bad and keeps enjoying her meal. While still eating, Riley mentions the only bad food she had was in the Lich's cave, and Grimoire says it's a bummer since he worked hard to cook for her. He balanced all the nutrients and used rare ingredients from the cave, but still, she seems unsatisfied and wonders what's the point since she doesn't have a good taste for food. Grimoire wraps up the conversation, saying there's something more important to discuss. The girl in red introduces herself as Rebecca Duncan, or Becky for short, and says it's nice to meet Riley. They mention she might be a crazy assassin, which is the real concern. After finishing her meal, Riley thanks Becky, who says there's no need for thanks. They explain that Rebecca, at just 27, is already an intermediate mage and came to Wilhelm for the selection exam. Rebecca laughs loudly, saying there's no need to be grateful for the food because everything here is free. Riley looks confused and doesn't quite get it. Riley remembers her chat with the administrator. Becky explains that by showing the emblem on her hand, some places are free, including this restaurant. The girl in red calls Riley Maeve. Becky looks frustrated, saying she didn't mean to offend. Grimoire gets annoyed that his friend isn't catching on. Riley has a blank look, clearly irritated. Rebecca asks if Riley has a place to stay, and Riley mentions she was planning to move on to her next spot. Becky, annoyed, says that's not a good idea since the quality of places varies a lot, asking to see her map and list. She points to a spot on the map, saying that one will work. The Celestial Whale Inn looks like the best option. The girl in red says she's staying and praises it for being quiet, secluded, and having a really nice owner. As Rebecca goes on about the place, Riley seems to be losing interest. Becky hands back the map, which is now covered in scribbles and red marks. Riley asks if the new girl won't join them, and Becky replies she'll be staying at someone else's place for a bit. While the young woman studies the marked-up map, the other girl watches her. Becky asks if Riley wants to stay at her place too, but Riley says no. The girl claims she was just curious, while Grimoire looks puzzled. He insists he has tons of experience spanning thousands of years. He insists that Becky's comment was genuine. Still, the young blonde can't figure out why the other girl is so interested in her. Her friend shrugs, saying he doesn't know and can't understand a lunatic's thoughts. He guesses that she's probably curious about how Riley, a newbie, made it through the first part of the exam. The protagonist points out that her friend talks pretty well for someone who claimed to know nothing, and he insists it was just a guess. She adds that there's a saying about how birds of a feather stick together. Grimoire questions if the girl is calling him crazy. While they chat, Becky walks over and tells Riley to take a break, saying they'll meet up for the next exam. The boy isn't pleased with what he's seeing. He explains that anyone who smiles like that is a bit of a maniac. Rebecca had shown some serious intent to kill when they first met, and took out some bandits without hesitation. The boy asks Riley to say something to the girl before they split. The protagonist says goodbye to the girl in red. Becky hopes next time they can fight in person. Unfazed, Riley tells her not to use illusion magic to freak her out. The girl in red asks what she means by illusion magic. The story goes back to the virtual battle they had during their first encounter. Riley faced death in that fight but managed to come back to reality. Becky mentions that what happened was a mental battle. But this isn't just some phenomenon, it's a real thing. The protagonist wonders if everything she went through in their first meeting was an illusion spell from her opponent. Rebecca is amazed by the young woman's smarts and says only a high-level mage could pull that off. Grimoire adds that since ancient times, the only way to spot illusion magic has been to watch closely, while Riley calls Becky an incompetent mage. She insists that if it had been a mental battle, she would have survived. But since that's not possible, it must have been an illusion. The girl in red gets furious. It's noted that all mages have a strong sense of pride and won't stay quiet when called incompetent. Still fuming, Becky asks what her opponent just said. She presses again, asking if Riley would have won under normal conditions, and the girl calmly answers that she would. Trying to keep her cool, Rebecca is left speechless as she thinks of a response. Suddenly, the mage bursts out laughing, mocking the fact that the protagonist thinks she would win. She calls the girl a child and claims she's a mage who's almost reached the advanced level. She points out that this is a huge difference compared to a newbie who's barely an apprentice, stressing there's a massive gap between them. Becky claims that their magical power, control precision, mana core strength, and casting speed are all worlds apart. Grimoire chimes in, saying that such a gap can't be easily bridged, no matter the skill, and that's just a fact. The young man is about to wrap things up, but is interrupted by Riley, who mentions that someone told her the same thing earlier, yet now that person is lying in a Wilhelm alleyway. She steps closer to Rebecca and says she killed someone with a hole in their chest. The woman in red stares at her as it's explained that the protagonist knows how to fight and take down stronger foes. It recalls the duel with the Lich, the battle against the female chimera in the hideout, and finally the fight with a man in the alley. Becky keeps laughing and says she'd love to attack Riley right now, and the girl replies that she's ready for anything. Rebecca tells her to shut up, claiming she knows her intentions but doesn't want to be disqualified for ignoring the administrator's warning. The protagonist insists that's a lie, and that Rebecca is backing down because she knows she'd lose. Wanting to wrap things up, the woman in red says it was all fun and that she's met all kinds of crazies before. She says goodbye to Riley and tells her to take care until the exam. As she walks away, Becky keeps mocking, saying she had a blast today. The blonde girl realizes it was just a clone. Grimoire agrees, mentioning that the real body must be on the other side of Wilhelm. It's explained that a strange man of flow can't exist in normal living beings, and if Riley weren't so sensitive, she wouldn't have noticed. The protagonist says she gets it now, and her friend asks what she means. She explains that she understands why Becky was interested in her. Riley says it was just out of curiosity, and Rebecca must be wondering when she'll figure out it's a clone. She adds that while Rebecca waits to be found out, the man of flow gets stronger because of it. Remora asks why the opponent would do that, and Riley replies it's just for fun. She says it's all about the thrill of almost getting caught, which is pretty entertaining. Her friend points out that's a crazy way to think, making it quite impressive. The figure is seen reading some papers by candlelight. The papers are profiles of the exam competitors, and the guy notes there are a lot of interesting candidates. He mentions the list goes up to the second sons of the Steamwood family, and feels a wave of nostalgia. Suddenly, a woman from the administration appears on a magical orb and tells him to forget his memories and turn to the next page. Curious, the man flips through, thinking the best is yet to come. He quickly checks the next profile and finds Riley's file, noting she's from Reinalmus Academy. It's mentioned that she's a new student eager to take the test quickly, which is typical for Reinalmus students. The administrator asks if he knows how long it took Riley to pass the first test. He arrogantly claims she probably didn't pass and likely wandered around Wilhelm for almost 3 months. The red-haired woman corrects him, explaining that Riley arrived in Wilhelm early in the afternoon and found the administration office in under half a day, leaving the man pondering. He suddenly grabs Duncan's file, boasting that the previous record was his, taking 4 hours to arrive even with 20 clones. On average, candidates take about a week to finish the first test. Ian Garan, Edward von Theobald, an expert student, took a whole day to complete it. The bespectacled man reflects that Riley now holds the record for the fastest time to reach the administration building. The administrator confirms this and mentions there will be plenty of exciting things to see this year. There's just 1 week left until the second selection test, and students are told to rest up before the next combat test. Riley agrees to take a break, while her friend points out they've been running around non-stop. With the test coming up, Riley starts to embrace a more laid-back lifestyle, waking up late, having breakfast, napping before lunch, and enjoying dinner more leisurely. 3 days go by. The girl says she's bored, and Riley is tired of just resting. Grimoire suggests a walk, and the girl is on board. Riley gets ready to head out, and her friend compliments her, saying she looks beautiful. She mentions buying some nice clothes, but still has cash left, while her friend notes she's still wearing what she got from Renalmus. Something catches the young woman's eye. It's the central library of Arcadia, and the young man explains it's been around for hundreds of years. He adds it's probably the second largest after Lutmos and has the most magical books stored. Excited, Riley asks if they can go inside, but her friend isn't so sure. Trying to convince him, the girl says there's nothing else to do, and that she can get in as a selection candidate. Exploring Arcadia would be a great experience because of all the rare magical books. Still, her friend isn't convinced. The boy mentions he was stuck there for 300 years with countless cursed books. Several books are shown. Riley suggests her friend should go in since he can avoid the library forever. The boy agrees, realizing that in their world, books are essential for gaining knowledge. He understands he can avoid the library forever and needs to face this trauma. Determined, he closes his eyes and decides to step inside. Romorio warns that if this doesn't work, he's out for good. As they approach the building, the girl spots something that captivates her. She's in awe of how beautiful it is. Her friend comments that the place doesn't feel cramped with books, and that the ceiling looks like a cheap knockoff of Hogwarts. The girl asks what Hogwarts is. Riley mentions she got a platinum access card, and Grimorio explains it's the top rank, letting them go anywhere. Hearing this, the girl is thrilled and says they already have a spot in mind. The guy heads toward the restricted section with the forbidden books. He mentions that this area has the books that really matter. He suggests she grab a lamp since it's pretty dim in there. The girl spots a brighter area. They decide to head over there, but then they see someone already sitting and reading a book in that part of the library. At that moment, they walk closer. Noticing them, the guy reading turns around and asks how they got there. Riley shows him the mark on her hand, leaving him puzzled. The man remarks that it's impressive the girl passed the first test, even with a terrible spell. Romorio recognizes him and remembers when the protagonist met the old man during her exam. Back then, the man warned it would be suicide for the girl because of the earlier massacre. The girl keeps showing her emblem on her hand. The old man suggests she should just give up. She asks how, and the man replies that the exam will be tougher than she thinks. He adds that only a mage with years of real battle experience could pass. Riley stays silent, and a heavy silence fills the air. After a few seconds, the girl thanks him for his concern but insists she's made up her mind. The old man calls her reckless, while the protagonist argues she's brave. The man insists it's not bravery but irresponsibility on Riley's part. Determined, the girl asks to show the old man her powers directly. She casts a few spells, and he declares there will be a duel. The old man with the white beard says she needs something for the test. He reveals that she has to duel him. The girl with yellow eyes asks why, and the old man explains it won't be a normal duel. In this one, he won't attack, which confuses her. She'll get 3 chances to attack the old man. If he takes even one step during the test, she'll win. He says he won't interfere anymore, and if she can land a hit, she'll definitely survive. The protagonist's brown-haired friend thinks the white-bearded man has a point. He looks at the old man seriously, noting there are fewer than 50 like him on the continent. He's a top-level expert mage. Among the test takers, he's clearly the strongest, and if the protagonist can hit him, it'll prove her skills. The girl with yellow eyes asks what happens if she can't land a hit, and the mage explains he won't conduct the test then. This leaves the young woman confused, and the old man adds that if that happens, he'll have to attack her for real. The surprised brown-haired boy reminds him he just said he wouldn't attack. The old man clarifies he won't kill her, just break her leg so she can't take the exam. The two friends agree that this guy is definitely not normal. The mage calmly asks the protagonist why she looks so serious. and she admits it's because her pride's been hurt. In a twist, the old man asks if she wants to fight on equal footing, and to everyone's surprise, she says yes. The man sighs at the nonsense he just heard. Then, he suddenly remembers something and asks the girl with yellow eyes to grab the book from his bag. Following his request, the girl holds up a green book called 100 Great Figures Who Shaped the Modern Empire. The mage takes it from her, and the protagonist's friend wonders why he's doing this. Flipping through the pages, he says it's a great book that tells the truth about history. He then hands the book to the protagonist and tells her to read it. Her friend asks why he's suggesting this book and points out page 67, which is about Garan Edward von Theobald. Garan was a commander of the magical unit on the Western Front, famous for holding off hundreds of demons by himself. This event is known as the Battle of the Housepart Mountains, and the Emperor praised Garan Edward, putting his name in the Hall of Fame. The two friends look at the book pages, confused. Not all high-level mages have the same skills. Some mages lock themselves away to train and level up faster, while others improve their skills by fighting in brutal battles. Among these high-level mages, there are those called giants, like Garan Theobald, the old man with the white beard. Suddenly, they spot the mage's picture in the history book. They exchange glances with mocking looks, but say nothing. Garan asks if he exaggerated, and the brown-haired boy agrees. The protagonist wants to boost her attack chances from 3 to 5, and the mage asks if she has no shame, but she was just joking. Then she realizes that the spot they're in isn't great for a duel, since there are too many obstacles. The old man snaps his fingers and assures her it's not a problem. Suddenly, magic starts to glow from his hand, spreading through the area. A small explosion of blue energy blasts out, clearing everything away. Now, there's a clear circle with no obstacles, and Garan asks if this space works. During the duel, the girl won't have to worry about damaging anything with her magic, since the old man set up a protective barrier. She asks Skull what happens if something slips out, but he reassures her that the facilities are protected against magic. With that, her friend says Riley can attack. They're about to find out if Riley's attacks can hit a high-level mage, and the girl declares they're going to smash the old man's nose. This is a perfect chance to test it safely. If she can't land a valid hit, her legs will be broken, but she's not that weak. Young mages who hit low-level rank before turning 20 are called geniuses. All mages go through 2 awakenings in their lives. The first happens at age 10 when they instinctively understand magic, mana, and the arcane, and they're called apprentices. The second awakening occurs in adulthood. The so-called attribute seed awakens, giving them unique traits that allow for more advanced and powerful magic. Once mages get used to the mana linked to their attribute, they move past the apprentice rank and reach low level. That's why adult mages see their abilities grow rapidly. They also get stronger as they age. However, mages who surpass the apprentice rank before adulthood are often called monsters, like Riley. Excited, Garan wants to see what the future holds for the girl in front of him. That's exactly why she shouldn't take the selection test. If she does, the magical world might lose another promising talent. The old man explains that in this duel, the young woman has 3 attacks. If he moves during that time, Riley will win. His goal is to show a huge gap in power to scare her into quitting the test. It's a harsh tactic, but it's the only way to protect this young mage. The bearded man says it's time to start, and the girl nods. She raises her hand and easily forms a blue energy sphere that grows and evolves. With a magical thrust, she sends the magic missile flying toward the elder, who stays still. He notes that the attack was really fast, which is a good sign, but it lacks mana and doesn't use techniques like rotation or changing its path. To protect himself, the mage creates a mana shield and blocks the missile right away. This is a straightforward attack that doesn't need special defenses, and the old man expected something like this. He thinks if he had let her take the test now, she wouldn't last long, but suddenly he feels something strange in his body. Is it paralysis? Garrow realizes he's sensing magic, the kind of fear you feel when facing death. Provoking him, Riley looks at her opponent, who's confused about what just happened. Garrow has felt the thin line between life and death many times on the battlefield. Now he feels that same tension, even though it's coming from a level girl. While he defends against her attacks, he wonders what's going on. Suddenly, he gets worried when he sees his mana shield fading away. He thinks this technique might be aimed at breaking his defense. A green magic disc appears behind him. The old man plans to use it to strengthen his attack. The disc rises and sends a green crystal to shatter the magic missile. Riley is caught off guard by his defense. Her powerful missile shatters into pieces on the ground. The brown-haired boy notices that the old man saw the attack coming and intercepted the magic before the shield could break. Jiran suddenly considers a new possibility. Could this whole plan be on purpose? The young woman made a direct attack. He wonders if it was meant to catch him off guard. It seems the girl's confidence isn't just youthful arrogance, and the mage realizes he needs to watch her closely. She raises her hand again and summons another blue energy sphere. Suddenly, her eyes widen. The girl launches the magic sphere at all the Elder's protective shields, surprising him. He raises his staff to deflect the blue ball's force. Once again, his power breaks the missiles into tiny fragments. Garan notices she attacked right at the weakest point of his magic, something someone at her level shouldn't be able to see. Plus, there's another key detail. Even though it was subtle, Riley managed to push him back. She has an amazing ability to sense weaknesses and knows how to exploit them immediately. It feels like an archmage is guiding her. The Elder realizes these skills aren't typical for someone inexperienced. This is someone who easily surpasses rank techniques, a genius. He has no choice but to accept it. The girl is definitely going to make it through the selection test. Garan lifts his left foot and steps forward. Confused, the girl, who is ready for another attack, can't figure out what just happened. She asks if she gets one more chance to attack, but the Elder tells her there's no need for a duel, since the outcome is already clear. He explains that her second attack pushed him back, which means she won. Now, as promised, he won't interfere anymore. Garan bows and apologizes for his earlier interference. Riley says she already knew that. She realized her second attack worked, and the Elder wonders why she bothered preparing another attack spell. The young woman remembers she had 3 chances to attack and starts to summon her spell. Ready, she wants her opponent to take an offensive stance. Channeling more magic, she still wants to check a few things, but the mage asks her to hold on for a moment. Worried, he wonders what she wants to confirm. Her first attack made him lower his guard, and the second showed skills typical of someone experienced. He questions if she's just using the duel as a test against a high-level mage like him. Another blue magic sphere is about to hit him, and the old man thinks this is crazy. The brown-haired boy watches with a smirk. He knows that mages of different levels are in a whole other league, and Garan comments that the girl's attack was quite unusual. Handing her a towel, the Elder says that if he had more mana, he could have been in serious trouble. Riley's friend notes that this means her technique is solid, but she lacks the mana to keep it up, which is normal. The only magic she can use that hasn't gone through an attribute awakening is the magic missile. With standard attributeless magic, she can only add variations through technique. The brown-haired boy calmly says that it's still impressive. After all, the way she used dispersion to create an opening for a surprise attack is something even a high-level mage wouldn't appreciate. Finally, he tells her she's doing great. As the three leave the hall, the old man asks if they can keep the duel a secret. The two friends agree, remembering they need to steer clear of any trouble with other candidates. Riley then says she doesn't know what the Elder means. She only remembers reading something in Arcadia, and the old man realizes she's already figured it out. Garan asks where she's staying, and the girl replies it's at an inn recommended by someone she knows. The place is called the Sky Whale Inn. The man then says that whoever recommended that place isn't a good friend since a psychopathic killer isn't trustworthy. He tells them there are way better places in Wilhelm, and the girl mentions that all she has is in the bag she's carrying. He asks the kids to follow him and assures them that the place they're heading to is 100 times better than the old inn where Riley was staying. The brown-haired boy questions if inns aren't all pretty much the same. They arrive at the Grand Arplestingwood Hotel, where a table full of fancy dishes is set, and they even ask if the girl needs anything else. Severals are on hand for anyone who needs help, and all this luxury leaves the kids speechless. The boy realizes this place is a whole different level. The one who recommended the old inn was Becky, but she was actually misleading Riley when the mage trusted her. Riley stands up and says this isn't right, and her friend asks why. Upset, the young woman thinks about finding Becky and giving her a piece of her mind. Her friend considers this, realizing they were also at fault for believing her. But even so, Riley feels justified. Tomorrow, she can get her revenge during the selection test. Suddenly, the girl thinks about this possibility and gets excited. The old guy is totally lost about what's going on between them since they're just thinking at each other. He asks Riley what she's up to, and she says she's feeling a bit stiff. Garen then wonders if they've run into Rebecca Duncan. Riley realizes she knows who the woman is, and the mage mentions it would be odd if she hadn't met her. The old man remembers what he told her in the carriage about people who treat the selection test like a real battleground. Rebecca definitely fits that description. Last year, she got disqualified for causing too many deaths in the test, and the year before, she killed the test supervisor. Most of the time, she keeps her craziness in check, but once a year, she lets it all out during the test. The brown-haired boy floats and says she earned the title of killing maniac for a reason. The mage, curious, asks why the 5 magic towers don't do anything about her. If she's that dangerous, they could just stop her at registration. Her friend steps in and explains that the towers have a straightforward reason. They want to use her as a test subject. He says running into a killing maniac like Rebecca during the test makes you wonder what she'll do next. The 3 of them reach a spot marked by the magic circle, and the backs of the mage's hands start glowing. They arrive at the second testing site, and the young man notices it looks just like the selection test's admin office. As they get closer, the old man tells them they need to go inside. He touches the door, and pink magic starts to shine from it. The doors swing open, and a powerful magic circle creates a strong wind for everyone. Riley starts to talk about what's happening, but her friend looks suspicious and raises an eyebrow at the mage. From the center of the magic, a square shape appears. Garan has seen this happen thousands of times. Then the 3 of them disappear from the spot, leaving only magical traces behind. That's the power of teleportation. The girl begins to open her eyes after the magical trip. Now, they find themselves in a hall packed with people. The brown-haired young man notices that this place is super fancy and looks like the inside of the Imperial Palace. They check out their surroundings and wonder if they're actually in the Imperial Palace. But it's not the one they know. The structure is completely different from the Grand Hall of the Rhea Empire. The inside is pretty old and the floor has cracks. Confidently, Riley realizes they're in a ruin. Ruins are where artifacts, treasures, and grimoires lie hidden. Usually, these places are heavily guarded with traps and guardians, making them the toughest to invade and conquer. It makes sense they chose such a risky spot for the test. The girl notices that Sir Garan Theobald is gone, but her brown-haired friend points out that he's right in the middle of the crowd. Without wasting any time, the girl rushes to reach the mage, but someone comes up to them. Rebecca shows up, playfully pushing the young girl. She pretends to be surprised to see the kids again, while Riley stays completely serious. Shaking the mage's hand, Becky asks how she's been and if she enjoyed her time on the Sky Whale, but the girl says she didn't. The psycho questions if the hotel wasn't as great as they thought. The 2 friends hold back their anger to keep from attacking her too soon. First, Riley says she didn't stay at that inn. She mentions she had a nice 3 days at Arpel Stingwood instead. Her friend knows that's not true since they were only there for 2 days after Becky tricked them. But she keeps quiet about it. Someone shouts to grab everyone's attention and points to a spot. All the examiners are holding stars and greeting the candidates. They announce they'll guide them through the second test, and Rebecca looks really angry. With a wild look, she tells Riley she'll make her regret that bold challenge from before, but Riley believes she can beat her. Annoyed, the woman steps back and says they'll see what happens, but the dark-haired boy is confused about why she always puts things off. One of the red-haired admins mentions that this round needs groups of 3 to compete against others. The admin will assign these groups, and the competitors will need to work together on site. They'll have to navigate through the test gates. Owen, who wears glasses, walks over to join their team. They get 30 minutes to get to know their team, which includes the girl with glasses, Riley, her friend, and Becky. The crazy mage complains about being on the same team as her rival, who responds that their fight will have to wait. Smiling, the girl is happy to be with Rebecca, while the dark-haired boy thinks this must feel like a dream for her. Even though she's teamed up with a dangerous maniac, she enjoys seeing Rebecca's bad luck. Becky seems like a wild mage who could cause a lot of issues, but she won't attack the protagonist during the test. The admin asks if anyone has questions. In response, the psychopath raises her hand with a question, and the red-haired woman calls on her. Becky asks what happens if team members fight each other and is told to behave so everything goes smoothly. The mage insists that wasn't her real question. She wants to know what happens if they just start casting spells at one another. Knowing Rebecca, the supervisor just laughs at the question. Garan also watches her odd inquiry. The brown-haired boy realizes things have just gotten worse. The admin explains that this team competition tests their ability to work together. So, if anyone on the team dies, everyone gets disqualified. When Rebecca hears this, she screams, calling it ridiculous. The other mages are also talking about it. Noticing the chatter, the admin tells everyone to be quiet, and they all turn to her. Grimoire notes that with the presence of a high-level mage, silencing a crowd was easy. She suggests that they might have been treated well, because they're mages after all, and they're valuable. No one would dare speak up, no matter how much trouble it caused. As a result, their personalities became twisted, destructive, and their social skills faded. But that won't be allowed anymore. To enter the Magic Tower, they need to act as a team, not as individuals. That's why the second test is a team competition, to see how they work with people they've never met before. She wraps up by saying that if they're not ready, they should just give up. Rebecca says she hates this. Then she grabs Riley's hand and says that even if she doesn't want to, they have to give it their all. The Grimoire thinks that for her to hold back her anger, it means she really wants to succeed. He figured she might go crazy, but she managed to control herself. Reflecting on it, Becky was hesitant about being eliminated even during their first encounter. He notes that she's not just a psychopath who enjoys killing. It could also be an act. At the back of the hall, a girl tries to get everyone's attention. Rebecca complains that they can't hear anything, and the girl comes closer. She stumbles over her words, saying she loves ancient magic, but then the girl interrupts her to ask for her name. Olivia introduces herself and mentions she's from the Arcane School of Flames. The girl shouts that the school is full of idiots who love ancient magic and questions why Olivia is alone. Ancient magic is an old practice that's not common anymore. It's seen as traditional and outdated. The Grimoire chimes in, saying that those who study this magic are just fools, chasing a fairy tale version of history. People who get into this stuff are called myth chasers and are treated like that, but he thought they vanished 300 years ago. The Grimoire then notes they have an angry illusionist assassin and a socially awkward ancient magic nerd. Riley's team is quite the mix. Garan checks in on the girl, asking how she's feeling since some folks get queasy after teleporting. Riley says she's okay and asks if he's got a solid team. Garan replies he's happy because they're all top-notch mages, and the Grimoire admits he's feeling a bit jealous. He then inquires about her team, but gets interrupted by Rebecca complaining about Olivia, saying she keeps her distance because of the noise. Garan wonders if it's lucky or unlucky to have Rebecca Duncan and an ancient magic user on the same team. Rumor agrees that no matter her reputation, Becky is really strong. The issue is they have no clue what she'll do once the test kicks off. They need to stay alert. As for Olivia, it's tough to expect much from someone into ancient magic, so they can really only trust Riley and Rebecca. Even though they fight as a trio, it feels like they're just two strong members, and the boy thinks it's pretty hopeless. The Grimoire adds that since they chose this selection test, they have to tackle it with strength and determination. It's not just their team feeling uneasy, everyone's asking the same questions, so they need to lean on each other for support. That's what being a team is all about in this second test. Meanwhile, Rebecca is still yelling at Olivia, so expecting teamwork from them seems unrealistic. Garan bids farewell to the girl, glad she isn't nervous despite his worries, and she thanks him before he walks away. Riley realizes they're now rivals. Grimoire isn't worried. Those months of training in the Lich's lair were crucial, and he feels confident. They'll get the results they want from this selection test. The administrator kicks things off by saying the second test will take place at the ruins entrance, introducing the challenge and explaining the rules. Inside the ruins is a maze, and they need to find the hidden treasures, which she shows to everyone. She touches a glowing orb that lights up intensely, and a golden golem appears from the light. The test lasts 24 hours, and there are 2 conditions to pass. First, they need to have the core of the golden golem by the end. The second condition is that all team members must still be alive by then. So, to sum it up, they need to get the golem, grab its core, work together, and survive for 24 hours. As long as they watch out for hidden traps and guardians, it doesn't seem too dangerous, and the other teams are in a similar boat. In an excited tone, the administrator mentions there are only 3 golems. With 42 candidates and 14 teams, that means only 3 teams can succeed. The Grimoire wonders what kind of test has such a low 20% pass rate. There's no guarantee all 3 golems will be found, resources are tight, and the demand is high. They want to see some fierce competition. Riley tells his friend this is harsh, and he explains that the 5 great towers promote rivalry among mages. To put it nicely, it's a meritocracy, but honestly, they just love watching them go head-to-head. The warning goes on, saying the Chimera is the most dangerous creature, built just for destruction and killing. The Grimoire thinks it looks familiar, and the administrator mentions that some might already know about it. 5 years back, a Lech attacked the Eastern Empire, and she points out that these are the same Chimras, reminding the Grimoire of the skeleton. She explains that once they pass through the gate, they'll end up in a random spot, and passing the test won't be a walk in the park. But if they succeed, they'll bask in the glory of the 5 great magical towers. And so, the second test kicks off. The Grimoire realizes it's the brains behind everything and comments on how huge the palace is. It feels like they're tiny visitors in a giant's home, but then they hear a noise approaching. When they look, they see a massive guy covered in chains, swinging a sword. Riley asks if they mentioned anything about this, and her friend says they talked about obstacles. But that statue wasn't supposed to be part of the fight. The girl points out they were meant to go in, find the golden golem, and dodge those monsters, and the Grimoire agrees, noting this area is a red zone. Its instincts scream not to mess with the statue, as it would take at least 3 Theobalds to even try. It wonders who would be crazy enough to provoke that thing when a mage from their team calls out to Riley. With excitement in her eyes, she insists they should take on that monster. The groom warrior yells for them to hold her back. Following his plea, a girl grabs Becky's arm, who protests, saying she'll never get another shot like this. Turning to Olivia, she asks for help while the girl screams to be let go. Riley points out they have no clue how strong it is, and the girl insists they should find out by fighting. She adds that if they rush in blindly, everyone will die for nothing, and the girl, smiling, says they'll at least get some excitement. The girl asks if she wasn't going to thank him, and after a quick thank you, she asks if she wants to ruin the moment. The other girl admits she does, and they start bickering. Olivia, with tears in her eyes, screams for them to stop fighting. They both turn to her, and she asks what they're doing around dead bodies, reaching out her hand. Grabbing the girl's hand, Becky asks why she's butting in, and the girl questions if Becky doesn't feel sorry for the bodies. Annoyed, Becky says this is why rookies are so irritating and asks the girl if she understands why she can't touch the bodies. The goo on the bodies is hound saliva. They have an amazing sense of smell. Like wild dogs, they can track their own paths. Olivia apologizes, and Becky tells her to be more careful since they're at a wall now. Riley starts staring at the mage, and when she asks why, he says he thought the girl would let the other touch the bodies. Rebecca insists she values her life, and the Grimoire notes that, even so, she still wanted to take on the stone giant. The mage echoes her friend's words, saying it's different because fighting the giant would be thrilling, while Howlons are just trash, and she only wants to battle opponents at her level. As she says this, other mages show up to fight them. The mage is pumped for her first battle, and everyone gets ready. But Olivia calls out to the group. A monster appears behind their enemies, grabbing one by the head. The group is shocked to be attacked, especially since they can't see what's hitting them. The monster goes after the whole group. Meanwhile, Olivia, with her mouth covered by her friend, and the others are hiding, watching everything unfold. Grimoire remarks that this test is really brutal, and just watching makes him feel sick. Rebecca yells at her friend not to throw up, and Riley tells her she'll puke before he does. The Grimoire asks the girl if she wants to take on the invisible chimera. As she stares at the monster, she sees it looks like a big dog. She wonders if she should give it a shot since no one else is around. Looking again, she notices that as it munches, its body starts to show more. After the Grimoire boosts her confidence, it tells Becky to stop hiding, which confuses her. Riley chimes in, saying if she wants some action, this is the perfect chance. That gets Rebecca pumped up to fight. Stepping out from her hiding spot, the boy and the mage watch the creature as it growls at them. The girl spots something coming, and then the monster blasts them with a magic ball. But Riley counters it with her own magic. She remarks that the monster seems pretty weak, and the Grimoire asks if that's because she blocked its attack. It adds that you shouldn't bother a dog while it's eating. Rebecca tells the boy he's quite impressive for a kid. Up close to the monster, she notices it moves without hesitation. As she gets nearer, the creature tries to bite her, but ends up catching one of her clones instead. Excited, she jumps onto the monster, claiming it still can't match her level. Riley questions if she really needed to say something so childish. Still grinning, Rebecca starts walking across the monster's back without getting hit, teasing the boy. Her clones around the monster begin to mess with it and throw insults. Seeing the creature getting more annoyed, Riley asks if they should finish it off. Calling her name again, the girl agrees. They both start gearing up their magic. They launch a cross-magic missile at it. A little later, Becky shows up where they were hiding, saying it was a piece of cake. Since Olivia is still hiding and scared, the girl tells her to stand up. Still scared and mumbling, Rebecca yells at Olivia to get up and says it's over. The Grimoire covers the boy's ears as the girl calls Olivia an idiot, telling her to chill out. It notes that the mage looks after her friend well, and the girl agrees. From what they've seen, that's how Becky shows she cares. Riley points out that the girl doesn't seem to have a mean streak. and the Grimoire agrees, saying she's not a killer for fun. She's definitely an odd mage, aggressive enough to start a fight right away, and sometimes does wild things without a second thought. But thinking it over, the Grimoire wonders if she acts just like Riley, who becomes serious. It concludes that Becky isn't someone who kills for kicks. Then it ponders what that warning from Goran was about, and it bothers it. Since they'll be together for the second test, they'll naturally find out the truth behind the rumors. Olivia asks the Great Mother of Magic to take care of the souls of the dead and the Goddess of Duty to gather their spirits as everyone watches. When she finishes, Rebecca asks why she goes through such a long ritual. She questions why they should honor the dead, and Olivia starts explaining the traditions of ancient magic. The Grimoire mentions it's a rule from the Blaze Arcane School, and the boy says it's just superstition. Riley decides to ask the girl something. Remembering their talk about tracking magic, Olivia admits she doesn't know how to use it. With that in mind, Riley asks how she passed the first test. Riley appears and says she couldn't use tracking magic, so she has no clue how they found the admin office. Becky realizes that's true and calls Olivia an idiot, wondering how she managed to pass the first test. The red-haired girl gets nervous and stutters. She only needed to show her knowledge of ancient magic. Finally, finding her voice, she says there was no rule saying she had to locate the office by herself. She explains that she asked a mage who specializes in tracking to help her find it. Everyone is totally stunned. Olivia admits, reluctantly, that she knows ancient magic better than anyone else and deserves to get into the 5 magical towers. She claims there's no one better than her, but she couldn't find the office alone. She argues it's unfair to fail her just because she can't use tracking magic. She goes on to explain how she got a mage to help her out. Desperate, she says she first asked for help but got turned down. She adds that they treated her like she was out of her mind, saying she didn't deserve to take the test. The Grimoire mentions it would have done the same. Olivia says she used torture magic to persuade them. She insists there are some nasty spells in ancient magic and that she's really good at torture magic. With that, she convinced the mage to do her a favor. Becky wonders how the administrator went along with that. The young woman explains she found the office using her skills, whether they liked it or not. Rebecca is asked how she can be a psychopath and still talk about respecting the dead. Olivia wonders what that has to do with anything and insists she was being honest. Mockingly, Becky calls the young woman crazy. After saying that, the girl collapses, complaining of stomach pain, and her friends support her while Grimoire questions if anyone is watching. Footsteps can be heard. 12 hours have gone by in the second test, and they still haven't found a golden golem core. Void asks if they're still running while looking at the map, and Riley confirms they are. It's explained that to pass the second test, they need to find the core, which is a golden golem, but even if the students spot it, the golem runs away. Riley comes across some golems, but they're moving fast. Becky says catching one is super easy. The protagonist notices there are 2 golems nearby. Both of them stop. Meanwhile, the old man and his 2 companions find the core they were looking for, and Mr. Garen Theobald handled everything by himself. The old man kept hundreds of demons at bay in the mountains. Thothel, the green-haired boy, calls out to the mage. He asks if they shouldn't take a break after finding the core, especially since they've been using tracking nonstop for half a day. Jiran replies that, even if he wanted to rest, there's no time. Quickly, he asks Arpel a question. He wonders if the boy hasn't had any questions since starting at the school. Seeing the boy has no doubts, he asks for the golem's core. The old man says it has a unique magical power. He claims he's never seen such magic before, and thinks it was probably created by the 5 great magical towers for a test. Theobald is puzzled about why they spent half a day searching for such a strong core. Even with the ruins full of interference, they couldn't detect any unique magical power. It's explained that Arpel Stingwood is a talented mage who reached the intermediate level by 29. He was the second son of the well-known Stingwood family. The young man can't figure out how he tracked such a strong power when even the old man couldn't. Theobald says it was just one of the intentional tricks and asks his friends to check out the magic. Everyone realizes it's dragon skin, and it looks like it's been enchanted. Dragon skin is super good at blocking magic, which is why they struggled to find it. Arpel wonders why one of the 5 towers would waste such a valuable material just for a test. The old man calls us out to the boy, saying he doesn't get what the test is all about. Theobald wants to ask another question. He mentions that around 42 candidates were in the ruins, and he's not sure how many are left now, but they all had to be good at tracking to pass the first test. Now that the hidden core is out in the open, the old man asks what the boy thinks will happen next. Arpel starts to understand the situation. The old man explains that the test was never really about finding the golden golem cores, but rather about protecting or capturing them. So the team that finds the golem first might be skilled, but they'll be seen as enemies by everyone else. The green-haired boy realizes it's a case of many against one, and this is all part of the plan from the 5 great magical towers. He wonders what the team will do while being watched by others. Arpel understands that everything was set up for multiple outcomes. The boy asks why Theobald took the core, knowing all this, saying he could have left it until the test was over. The old man explains that they'll eventually have to fight, so it's better to face everyone at once. The other groups watching decide to attack the one who grabbed the core. The old man quickly defends himself. He takes out the opponents efficiently, leaving them unable to move on the ground. Theobald uses the magic from the recently collected core against the opponents. He tells Arpel and Dorothy to get ready. With their combined strength, they could take on 10 opponents. Meanwhile, Becky shows up and calls for Riley. She asks if the protagonist is feeling something too. It's the power of the golem's core, and they need to get there fast. Surprisingly, the blonde girl says no. Rebecca suggests that if they hurry, they can get there quicker and handle the team that took the core. Riley points out that other teams will think the same, and by the time they arrive, the others will already be there. Becky asks what they should do. The protagonist explains they need to wait until everyone is focused, and then grab the golden core. She tries to elaborate, but Becky interrupts her. Still, the young woman insists her friend should follow her advice. Convinced, the girl in the red dress agrees to listen. The Grimoire thinks the other competitors don't have tracking skills as good as Riley's, concluding that the others could only find a golden golem by pure luck. At that moment, the previously quiet core starts giving off powerful energy. All the candidates rush toward it, and chaos breaks out. The protagonist wonders why the magic got stronger. He thinks it's a setup to make groups fight each other. Riley suspects someone did this on purpose to thin out the competition quickly. Grimoire wonders who could pull something like that off. Becky gets annoyed watching everyone fight while her group is just walking along. She asks how much longer they have to walk, saying she's bored to death. Olivia tells her to hang in there a bit longer. Rebecca uses the walk to ask the red-haired girl why she picked ancient magic. The girl wonders why she's asking that out of the blue, and Becky replies that she's just bored. She mentions that ancient magic isn't really useful, so she doesn't get why the girl picked it. Before Olivia can chime in, the protagonist points out that Becky also specializes in illusion magic. This annoys her, and she insists she can handle basic magic, while Olivia's skills are a bit lacking. The Grimoire backs this up. Feeling embarrassed, the red-haired girl says sorry for saying ancient magic isn't useful. Rebecca suggests there's gotta be a reason she focuses so much on ancient magic and ignores the other types. Olivia tries to explain that she grew up hearing stories that inspired her. She tells Becky she should check those stories out too. They go on to explain what those stories are about. Becky brushes them off as just fairy tales. She sarcastically says there's no way to erase a mountain or split a sea. Even if Marnafar Herok came back, it wouldn't change anything. Olivia tries to persuade her that these stories are real. Quickly, Becky asks why no one at the school has pulled it off, and if Olivia believes it, she should be able to show it. The red-haired girl lowers her head, unsure how to reply, but Becky claims she's just looking out for her. She goes on, saying it's a waste to pour all her potential into fairy tale illusions. Still teasing, Rebecca asks if Olivia has anything besides torture magic. Once again, the young girl apologizes. Trying to lift her spirits, Becky shares that she used to think mastering illusion magic would make her strong too. She insists that everything she's saying is for Olivia's benefit. At this moment, Olivia thanks her. Then they continue walking. Riley calls out to the Grimoire, asking if it knows whether the magic from those fairy tales was real. The protagonist wonders who's right. Without missing a beat, the young man says Olivia is right, and that ancient magic did exist. He adds that mountains were really erased, seas split, and entire armies wiped out with just a touch of magic. He wraps up by saying he and his friends were the ones who did all that, and now they're legends. They dive into more details about ancient magic. Riley asks why people have forgotten about it. The Grimoire explains it's the scary power of time. He says magic is closely linked to history, and as time goes on, people forget certain achievements. The boy notes that ages ago, the era of wars came to an end. So, the Empire, backed by archmages, brought the continent together. The Emperor who united it named the nation the Empire of Redis and declared a time of peace. Because of this, destructive magic became unnecessary. Riley points out that war mages aren't needed during peaceful times. The The Grimoire finishes by saying the Empire sent mages to labs to improve life for citizens and deal with neglected dungeons. To master those neglected magics, new magic had to be created. Magic with massive power was great for wiping out enemies. A guy challenges everyone to attack him, no matter how many there are. Another person tells him to cut it out. So much magic in a dungeon makes things tricky, and a collapse happens. Someone is found injured, buried with just an arm sticking out. The ceiling is about to cave in, and everyone could be trapped. Riley is staring intently at something. They mention that magic evolved for safety and efficiency, and that pathfinding magic was created during dungeon raids. Rune War listens closely to this. On the flip side, powerful magic has lost its edge and is now seen as ancient. As the Empire found stability, some folks got curious about this old magic, but the historical gap became too wide. So, no one really remembers the legends, which leaves him feeling bitter. Riley asks his friend if he still knows how to use ancient magic. He replies that he does, but he doesn't see a point in using it anymore. The protagonist then asks if she can learn it. Still, Grimoire insists that ancient magic is pretty much useless. Not convinced, the girl argues that if a war happens, ancient magic will come back into play. Grimoire explains that this magic isn't just picked up. You have to study ancient runes, memorize spells, and reshape the magical circuits in your body. Riley and I would have to start all over. The girl would need to give up her best skills, affinities, and everything she learned. She replies that she's not on board with that. She says she'll have to learn ancient magic in her next life. The friends share a group hug. Meanwhile, a little farther away, another group is sitting. A golem is tied up. Becky cheers that they found the core, but another team is already there. Everyone in their group looks worn out, suggesting the mission was tough. Rebecca notices that the guys who caught the golem didn't take the core. The golem gets furious about being tied up. One of the guys uses magic and says he'll calm it down. Riley wonders why they're keeping the golem alive instead of just killing it and grabbing the core. Runemore realizes it's dragon skin. The young woman agrees, noting that's why the magic feels weak, even with the golem around. It's explained that this was a strategy to keep other teams away, and they'd only take the core near the end of the test. Grimoire warns the girl to be careful around them. Rebecca adds that they're a tough group, so they need to be cautious. Becky insists that they've always fought strong opponents. She tells everyone to follow her toward the group. The trio that caught the golem notices the other group approaching. The girl in the red dress bursts out laughing. They prepare to attack, but Rebecca just keeps laughing at that. Before she can strike, one of the guys says he surrenders. The girl is taken aback and asks if he's joking. The others in the group wonder why their leader is doing this. He tells the guys to shut up and kneel, or else they'll die. Becky is confused since Roop was supposed to be strong and fight them. Riley thinks it's because of Becky's fame in the magical world. The leader on the ground begs for mercy, apologizing to Olivia, leaving everyone stunned. They say they'll hand over the golem without any torture magic. The red-haired girl mentions that the leader helped her pass the first test. Everyone finally gets what's going on. The little creature is snoozing peacefully in Riley's lab. The main character realizes it's a baby that looks like a Sphinx cat. Rebecca shows up, wanting to pet it too, and says the animal is super cute. Out of nowhere, the creature gets mad, jumps into her hand, and bites her. Riley, not really caring, asks if she's okay, but her hand is bleeding. She's definitely not okay. This team is a mess, but at least they got a golem without any fighting. The dark-haired guy figures it's better to skip the pointless battles, even if the crazy one loves to fight and seems unhappy about it. Becky points out the girl with glasses and her torture powers, mentioning how the leader freaked out when he saw her. The girl admits she's trained hard. The psycho notices that she shouldn't have been shaking earlier if she could use her powers. But there's a catch. This magic has a month-long cooldown because it's ancient and always has issues. Rebecca calls her friend crazy, and Riley's buddy is confused about who she's calling crazy. She also asks if the girl with the torture powers is from the South, and she says yes. The maniac explains that every time she heard the girl with glasses, she spoke with an accent, and the cat friends agree. Then, the dark-haired boy mentions that the South has a lot of crazy people, and the wildest ones usually come from there. The girl with yellow eyes pouts, asking if that's not regional bias, leaving her friend shocked. He tries to clarify, saying he's been gathering info over the years, but the girl knows his bias and is let down. The boy is confused about when she started caring about morals, but they hear Rebecca's voice in the background. She puts her hand on her chest and says she's from the South too. The two girls bond over being from the same place. Riley tells Grimoire that the South has plenty of crazy folks, which annoys him since he just said that. The girl doesn't recall saying that, and her friend jokes that she must have been influenced by the story of Pinocchio since her nose grew. But the girl insists that it was her favorite story as a kid, and Grimoire can't believe such a story exists. Grinning, Riley says she was just kidding and the boy feels duped. The only stories she knows are ones her friend has never heard of, but she says it's clear he wouldn't know them. After all, those stories were written just for her by Uncle Robert. Grimoire asks who that is. Then the main character flashes back to a blonde guy in flames, with someone telling him to run fast. She explains he was part of the same thieves guild, and the boy asks if the stories are at least normal. The tales teach lessons like not to trust others, which freaks him out but helps him see why his friend is a bit off. It's been 20 hours since they entered the ruins, with 4 hours left in the test. Riley uses her magic to check that no other candidates have come near this spot. Yawning, she says it's been a long day, and her friend tells her they just need to hang in there a bit longer. Just 4 more hours, and then the challenge will be over. Grimoire realizes the test is almost done, and they'll get through it without issues. Suddenly, he hears a noise and Riley freaks out. Then, a purple magic light zips toward them, ready to hit. It gets closer, and the mages start to get up to defend themselves. Raising her hand, the protagonist calls on her blue magic. She channels all her mana into breaking down the magic. She's focused on finishing off the magic sphere. It seems the attackers could mess up her win in the challenge, and the 2 southern girls stand up, terrified by what they see. Becky shouts at Riley, reminding her that she said no one was coming. Riley replies that her fine path didn't pick up anything. Annoyed, Becky tells her not to be silly, insisting it's impossible that she didn't sense anything. The girl's magical talent is unmatched, allowing her to spot hidden traps in the 5 great magical towers and even use fine path in places packed with magical chaos. Grimoire knows Rebecca is aware of this, so it doesn't add up unless the enemies are using dragon skin or something similar. Just then, a group of hooded figures appears, wearing dragon skin on their heads. That's where the purple magic attacking them is coming from. They're really going all out. Grimoire thinks if the enemies have dragon skin, it means they've found the golden golem. But why would these people go after Riley's team? The dark-haired boy is confused, but he has a lot of theories, all of which are uncertain for now. One thing is clear, these folks are a serious threat. Their mana concentration, casting speed, and accuracy are impressive, even better than Riley's. Plus, the young mage recognizes this mana. It feels familiar. Rumor picks up on it too, even if it's a strange thought. Everyone on their team raises their hands to combine their powers. The enemy team does the same thing. They're both creating mana spheres. Suddenly, colored lines shoot across the battlefield like lasers. The brown-haired boy realizes this is a recognition phase. It's a cold war to gauge the opponent's strength using subtle mana. Mana acts like instruments that remember their musician's sounds. Depending on the magic a user casts, mana creates a unique wave that flows quickly to a mage who follows it. For someone using destructive magic, mana is charged with violence. For a mage focused on precision, mana is neat and orderly, but for a mage who brings death, mana is thick with deadly intent. This allows them to predict what the opponent might do next. The mage can figure out how compatible they are and map out every possible battle path, which is called recognition. Realizing who it is, Riley says she didn't expect to see her opponent like this. He starts to take off his hood, revealing it's Garan. Grimoire wonders why it had to be him of all people. The old man seriously says he didn't want things to go this way, and the boy thinks he doesn't want to face him as an enemy. He asks if the elder is here for the core, but the old man already has one of those. Riley tries to ask, but Garen reminds her of what he said earlier. The second test attracts many mages, and some crazies see this place as a real battlefield. Plus, he has his own goals in the test. The girl listens closely to what he's about to say. Finally, the old man declares that his goal is to kill Rebecca Duncan. The elder only holds a grudge against one person here, and that's the maniac. If they let her live, it will only lead to more disasters in the magical world. Suddenly, they remember the rule that says if a team member dies, the whole team gets disqualified. Riley states that she will be disqualified if Becky is killed. That's why the mage says it's a shame things turned out this way. She glares at her enemy. Excited, the psychopath claims she'll take care of the old man because she has some things to settle. Feeling anxious, the main character tries to stop her, but her friend insists it's the best move since they can't handle Garan. Grimoire explains it's due to the elder's compatibility. The girl with yellow eyes has a unique fighting style. Her main weapon is a missile that changes speed and direction to find the enemy's weak spots. Right now, Geron's magic is all about defense. He keeps a solid barrier and hides his vulnerabilities. In this situation, it would be easier to take on the two from his team. Riley warns her partner that it'll be a tough fight, but Becky seems to be aware of that. She claims she only battles opponents at her level. Plus, there's a perfect target right in front of her, and she can't let this chance slip away. The mage watches his opponent closely. He then pats Dorothy's head and cautions her that her opponent won't be a walk in the park. She shouldn't stress about the girl who only knows ancient magic, and the other one is pretty, at least from what he sees. Dorothy, watching, is confused. From her perspective, the smaller girl looks like just a low-level mage, and she's spot on. Frustrated, the girl questions Riley's bravery for showing up to the selection test as a low level. Despite being told not to judge, she can't help herself. Finally, the old man tells Arpel to look after Miss Dorothy, and he gets it. The mage asks if they just need to take down those two. In reply, Garan warns her to stay alert, and the girl lifts her foot. She stomps down hard, unleashing dark purple magic. This creates claws and lightning that shoot toward the opposing team. Grimoire realizes this is dark magic at play. The team with dragon skin is serious and focused on their assault. Suddenly, the magic intensifies and starts forming a dark transfer. One of the lightning bolts strikes with speed and accuracy. It looks like only Jiran and Rebecca are left. She watches intently as the battle is about to begin. Then the woman bows and says it's an honor to fight Geron Theobald. As she approaches the old man, the maniac mentions the name Sharon. Shortly after, she asks if he knows how much the girl talked about him. It's Becky's first time seeing him, but she feels a strange connection to him. Jiran, with anger in his eyes, calls her by her name and warns her not to dare speak his granddaughter's name with her dirty mouth. In a flashback, the girl is Nihlan, crying and begging to be spared. Magic surrounds the rest of the group as they get teleported. They find themselves in what looks like a giant indoor garden. Grimoire realizes he can move freely since there are weeds and wonders if it's just the two of them who got teleported. Suddenly, he spots the girl with glasses crying in a corner and is shocked to see her. The cat sneaks in too. Apparently, Toby is with them, which is a relief because losing the golem they worked so hard to get would be a disaster. This makes Grimoire question why they ended up here. The magic used was Dark Transfer, a strong spell that forcibly moves Tarbet, but it has limitations. One of those is the high mana cost, which is risky for a quick separation, so there must be another reason. This place might have something that gives them an edge. Riley sees that the plants around her block her view, even with mana detection, which isn't great for a battlefield. While that's true, a dark-haired boy thinks it's crucial to consider everything since their foes are mages. Why would they bring the team here, even if it means losing visibility? Suddenly, the boy gets an idea. As they step on the ground, a bit of purple magic appears. Their friends still don't get it. Meanwhile, Dorothy complains about Gara missing his chance in the fight, and Arpel points out that ambushes are their way of fighting honorably. Dorothy doesn't care about honor since they aren't knights and expresses her confusion. Annoyed, she asks why she should give her all for a coward. Plus, there are those two low-level kids, and the girl wonders why she should worry about them. Arpel cautions her to stay alert, but Dorothy brushes it off and asks if he doesn't find it unfair too. Confidently, she claims it's practically 2 against 1, and Grimoire points out that it would be a tough fight. She suggests the kids should just give up since Rebecca is practically done for, and the old man Theobald is really going after her. No matter how skilled she is, facing a high-level mage alone is tough. That's just how it is. Riley has to either team up with Becky before she goes down, or Rebecca will lose and everyone will fail the test. The girl asks her friend if that's even possible, and it seems unlikely since the two mages look like experienced mid-level fighters. Riley is deep in thought about it. The enemies say they don't want to waste time fighting, but if they push it, a fight might happen. Then Arpel uses his magic, and the plants start to move. They transform into huge carnivorous plants that won't hold back, just like the old man said. After all this, the friends realize that this was the main reason they were brought to the garden. This is Arpel's ability, passed down from the great archmage, Cromwell Stingwood's earth magic. Riley hears that name and ponders it. A trace of purple magic from Dorothy is almost touching their feet, which startles her. Suddenly, a big magic explosion goes off, but the young woman manages to escape. She gets into a defensive stance with plants above her and dark magic rising from the ground. With just one step, a strong blue mana starts to flow from the supposed low-level kid. The enemies don't want to fight her, as it would be embarrassing for both. Dorothy warns that the threats are done and tells Riley to give up. She adds that there will be plenty of chances since she's young, while Grimoire starts mocking their opponent's powers. The protagonist asks her friend what he thinks about that. She wants to know if he thinks the young woman can take them down. Analyzing the situation, the boy realizes it's a battle with a huge disadvantage since the two mid-level mages are in top shape. But the Grimoire's judgment, which has faced countless foes over millions of years, believes it's possible. Grimoire recalls that in his hometown there's a book with foolproof strategies. One says that if you know yourself and your enemy, you need not fear 100 battles. The brown-haired boy asks what their main target is, and the girl says they should focus on the guy controlling the plants first. That's because he's the core of the setup. If all the plants vanish, the shadows will disappear too. Excited, the boy says that's the right plan. That guy is a dangerous opponent, since he can bind someone with vines, paralyze them with mushroom spores, and attack with carnivorous plants. But Grimoire has a question. He wonders who created the Archmage Cromwell Stingwood, the one who invented this plant-based magic. The girl mentions the 5 Archmages: Aeon Shinskin, Cherdian Sokolov, Cromwell Stingwood, Dmitri Kashin, and Marta Faharich. She's heard they were brilliant wizards really into magic, but her friend thinks they were just a bunch of fools. Still, they weren't the type to back down easily. Riley's heard enough about the boy's followers, so she already knows the story of Cromwell Stingwood, who was once asked by his master what he enjoyed. His teacher was shocked by his response. All excited, the student shows off a glowing plant in a pot. He reveals that his true passion is growing and taking care of plants. Now, Grimoire wants to know what he thinks about this kind of magic. The two friends are pretty familiar with their opponents. Dorothy notices they're laughing and seem to have made a decision. Furious, she tells the kid to decide whether to fight or give up. Riley calls her friend over and shares a fairy tale she read that really stuck with her about a con artist named Amy. It was one of the stories written by Uncle Robert, who was in the Dragon's Guild. Then the girl explains how Amy pulled off her tricks in the story, and the dark-haired boy listens closely. Next, the kid tells their foes to take this. I'm not sure what she means. Riley tells them to take the golden golem shaped like a kitten. Dorothy is surprised since Theobald warned they'd definitely fight back. Still, she realizes that if she fights, the kid will go wild. She then says this isn't a bad deal for them and asks for the golem to be handed over. The poor kitten is crying as it says goodbye, but Riley tells it to stop and go over there. Excited, Dorothy calls the creature to her so her older sister can take care of it. Grimoire sarcastically questions the strategy behind this move. The idea is that people don't protect themselves from creatures weaker than them. The boys should keep a close eye on what's happening. Toby carefully approaches the enemy. Riley encourages him to go with a smile. The kitten, being cautious, gets ready for its surprise. The last command for the creature is to bite the opponent really hard. Toby speeds in for an attack aimed at Dorothy's face. As soon as he reaches her hand, he sinks his shark golem teeth into it, causing her to bleed. With the woman crying in pain, her partner rushes to help her. The protagonist starts forming her magic missile in her hand. Then she launches her weapon right at her enemy's face. Arpel watches the scene in shock. He calls forth a shield to protect his teammate. Rumor is impressed by how weak his defense is. That was a careless strategy from his opponent. Suddenly, even Arpel's weak magic can't hold back the missile, and the attack starts to take effect. Next, the shield begins to crack, and the man complains about it. The two partners manage to dodge the enemy's attack. The dark-haired boy realizes this was a quick and smart response. Dorothy declares that the kid is insane for attacking them in such a sneaky way. Bradley asks if they're knights who fight fair. The girl remembers being asked whether she would fight or give up. She proudly states she chose to fight. Plus, she plans to win big. Then, she boldly challenges her foes to battle. Meanwhile, Garan and Rebecca are fighting, and the old man doesn't want her to mention his beloved granddaughter. Ironically, the maniac remarks that her words sting and wonders if her foul mouth comes from being an assassin. She steps closer and tells the elderly man that he shouldn't insult her, especially since she avenged Sheriffin for him. 2 years back at the selection test, some people rush in and one tells them to move. Someone crosses the finish line, and the girl cheers, claiming she's number 1. It's Rebecca Duncan, celebrating her quick win in the first test. Becky is thrilled to have triumphed again. She notices Sharon is missing and wonders where she went, as others ask how many clones of her there are. The other competitors are upset about losing, but one girl stands out, running away. A blonde girl is being chased by a huge monster, pleading for help. The young woman begs them to save her. Rebecca realizes it's Sharon and asks why she's screaming. Then Becky starts having visions. She sees her friend being chased, while everyone else laughs at the scene. She feels desperate. Back in the present, the young woman is with the old man, saying she avenged Sharon for him. The conversation goes on, and she accuses them of letting her friend die while they just laughed. Rebecca claims they killed Sharon and that she took them all out for revenge. The old man argues this isn't revenge. She's justifying murder, turning his honor into a massacre disguised as justice. They explain that 2 years ago, an elder from the 5 great magical towers was killed. A year ago, many mages from different schools were also slain. Since then, Rebecca Duncan has been known as the maniac of murders. Theodol mentions that his granddaughter's death sparked the nickname, which didn't help Sharon at all. Continuing the discussion, the old man says he'll kill her himself to clear his granddaughter's name. Mockingly, Becky asks what honor he's talking about. She points out that his only granddaughter is dead, yet he still cares about honor, and she just doesn't get it. The man grabs her by the head, saying he's always wondered how someone like Rebecca could be his granddaughter's best friend. The young woman replies that she's thought the sea self and can't understand how someone so pure is related to him. Theodolf tries to reply, but he's cut off. Becky questions why he talks so much. She reminds him that a mage speaks through magic, just like he always told Sharon. The spell is cast, and the man warns her for the last time not to mention his granddaughter again. Ignoring him, Rebecca brings up Sharon again, calling her her best friend, and the old man's only granddaughter. Annoyed, Theodolf unleashes the wind attribute into the storm field. Several stones start falling and being hurled. Becky gets buried under the rocks. She's hurt badly, but the old man realizes he's been dealing with Duncan's clone all along. He finds it pretty funny. The spells keep flying, and he starts spotting Rebecca again. But before he can react, the girl is right behind him, grabbing his neck with a sword. The old man tells her to wait so he can defend himself. He quickly tries to use another spell on her, but just like before, it doesn't work. In a flash, the girl cuts Theodolf with the sword. Everything slows down, and it feels like the world is flipping upside down. The old man feels a familiar sensation, one he's had countless times in battle, and thinks he's about to die. Then he hits the ground. To his surprise, he wakes up and finds himself standing in front of Duncan. The girl calls out his name. She says she's let down and can't believe he was so slow to escape the illusion. Rebecca mentions that Riley got out in a second, while the old man took 2. Becky explains that Theodolf just faced death. She asks him if he really saw it. He stares at her, still processing. Scenes of Becky's attack flash by. The man's hands clench and relax. He starts to realize something. The boy says Rebecca is using cheap tricks again. The girl retorts that they're as cheap as the old man's eyes, and claims she didn't start on a battlefield like him. Annoyed, he asks if the battlefield wasn't part of her plan. She mocks him, asking if he was trying to lure her. She says if a big fight broke out, she would definitely show up. Plus, she accuses the old man of deliberately revealing the core's magic. The old man agrees, saying there's no mage more aggressive than her. The girl says she'd like to leave too, but Riley stopped her. A wand is aimed at Becky. Holding the magical material, the old man says since Rebecca didn't go, he has to find her. The tip of his wand starts glowing. Confused, the girl tries to push away her object. Unable to do anything, the young woman claps. She says the old man is impressive, noting he fought all the candidates just to catch her, likely killing dozens in the process. In disbelief, she questions why they call her a maniac assassin and accuses the old man of being contradictory. Annoyed, he glares at her, reminding her she asked if he had seen death. The old man confirms he has, but the death he saw was hers, and he plans to show it to her. Becky listens closely to everything. The girl shuts her eyes and recalls what her mother used to say. She mentions that 9 out of 10 herbalists die in the mountains from falling off cliffs while gathering herbs. It's explained that a swordsman dies by his sword, an alchemist in his lab, and mages die following the path of magic. Rebecca asks the old man to show her the death he witnessed. She wants to see it so her 27 years of life weren't for nothing. A surge of energy builds up for the old man. He gives Becky a serious look. Then someone shows up and invites them over. Rimuru and Riley arrive, jokingly calling the others losers. The boy observes the situation and notes it was a better response than Becky's. The other girl curses the main character, clearly falling for her taunts. Annoyed, the teasing continues, and the girl is called a brat, questioning if she thinks the duo is nothing. The white-haired girl, completely losing it, vows to take down her opponent. While she casts spells, Grimoire appears, reminding her that staying calm is a mage's basic virtue. The energy keeps building up. Riley manages to defend herself, stating that emotional magic makes attacks easy to predict. The protagonist unleashes an even stronger spell. The boy with Dorothy urges everyone to stay calm. Despite that, the battle is nearly over. Various spells and powers start flying through the air. The fight rages on. Garthy encourages Arpel to give it his all, but the boy expresses his frustration. Grimoire acknowledges that the young woman has inherited Cromwell's magic, but wonders why she hasn't improved her plant magic in the 300 years he's been asleep, which is why she can't beat them. The gray-haired girl, using shadow displacement, has little magic left while her wound keeps bleeding. Physically and mentally drained, she struggles to keep fighting, making her shadow plans slow. But Riley's friend knows he only needs to focus on Arpal, but he has the upper hand. Still, the protagonist warns that they could be in trouble as time is running out. Even if they take down the duo, they need to reach Becky before she dies. Otherwise, they'll lose. The boy asks what to do, and Riley insists they have to act. The protagonist asks her friend if he can break the link between the mage and the summoned creature. Suddenly, a huge explosion goes off. Riley makes a big leap. Dorothy and Arpel are stunned by what they see. The girl moves swiftly and efficiently. No one can figure out how she's doing it since no mage moves like that. While she moves, the girl thinks about how to sever the connection between the mage and the summoned creature. She realizes she'll need to attack the mage directly to achieve that. The green-haired boy falls after being hit by her. Dorothy also gets hit. Riley breathes a sigh of relief after landing her attack on the duo. She explains it was a moment of incredible focus. Grimoire thinks the friend is completely worn out. Nearby, a young woman with red hair is watching. The protagonist hears a noise that grabs her attention. She spots someone crouching behind a bush. The boy says Olivia is also safe. He mentions the girl has some minor injuries but managed to defend herself. Someone's coming. Riley spots something on the ground. It's Gollum. He quickly sees a puncture wound on the creature, likely from a plant. The protagonist gets closer to check the wound. Silence hangs in the air. She glances at her hand and notices a colorful ball. She says they need to help Becky before it's too late. It's mentioned that the fight is over, but they both have to assist Rebecca. The girl is up against Geron Theobald. Riley quickly finds the young woman using magic. They rush, but something on the map catches the girl's eye, and she looks again. The young woman realizes Becky's presence is gone. Another figure approaches and tells them to stop. They turn to see it's Sir Geron Theobald. The old man declares that Rebecca Duncan is dead. He says Raleigh's test ends now. The protagonist insists she can still sense the other girl, but it's faint, and that kind of presence isn't alive. She recalls the rule that if a team member dies, the team gets disqualified. The young woman is crushed to learn she won't continue in the test. The old man claims Duncan committed terrible acts. Still upset, Riley asks if the man lost someone to Becky. He replies he lost something far more important, his honor. The protagonist is speechless. After a pause, she points out the old man's contradictions. She notes he hates mages who treat the test like a battlefield, yet he uses it for revenge, which is just as bad. The old man sighs and says he has nothing left to say. Frustrated, the protagonist declares everything feels pointless, but then she has a quick vision. Theobald wonders what's going on. He realizes the girl is planning to fight him now. He questions her motives, claiming the test is already over. Riley declares she will fight him because he killed Becky. The old man mocks her, doubting she got attached to the murderer so fast, and asks if she's trying to avenge Rebecca Duncan. The protagonist questions how she could possibly avenge a friend. She explains that Becky's death means she's disqualified, which is why she's upset. Eager to fight, the girl says she doesn't care about their battle, but feels her year was wasted. So, Theobald should waste a year too. Otherwise, she won't be able to sleep from frustration. The old man admits the girl has a strong personality and recognizes her skills from how she took down the team members. Still, the protagonist decides to attack. Feeling pressured, Theobald says he'll have to give it his all. He casts a spell at the old man, while Riley launches 5 magic missiles. Even with all his effort, the guy is still fine. He laughs and tells the young man that those little magic missiles won't break through his defense. From a distance, Grimoire sees his friend doesn't have enough power and knows there's no way to get past a strong shield with just basic magic. He thinks about what he can find in the ruins around them. Glancing to the side, he spots the red-haired girl. He gets angry when he realizes that while he and Riley were fighting, she just stood there, shaking with fear. As he thinks this, the young man has a realization. He questions if she's really just scared. It hits him that her murmuring isn't just from fear. He quickly calls out to the protagonist, saying the key move they need is right in front of them. Ancient magic is unleashed. The old man, ready for the fight, warns that if this keeps up, the test will end anyway, and tells the girl to save her strength and accept the outcome. Grimoire suggests she stall until Olivia is ready. Riley tells the old man she's considering surrendering. While trying to stall, she speeds up the casting of the ancient magic using thought acceleration. The boy watches Olivia get ready and reassures her that they're in the outer garden, so they won't get buried. The girl is focused on the ancient runes, drawing attention. Rune Moore remembers when Olivia failed the test and thinks it makes sense for her to feel confident. The boy tries to help as the battle heats up, telling her she's missing part of the initial chant. It's explained that this happens a lot, and over time, some invocations or chants can fade away. Because of this, no matter how much the girl sings, the magic won't be cast and will stay stuck. Realizing he can help, Grimoire recites the missing parts of the chant since he created it ages ago. The boy hears orders for Riley to talk to the red-haired girl. She tells Olivia to keep singing and listen to her, then points out that a key verse is missing from the invocation, and she'll say it. She says it's a secret she can't explain but asks the girl to give it a shot. The plan works, and the girl nods in agreement. Riley focuses and says she'll take down Theobald along with the other girl. The old man looks back, surprised that he thought the protagonist would give up. Grimoire leans in close to Olivia and whispers the missing prayer in her ear. Meanwhile, the other girl tries to buy even more time. Suddenly, a huge surge of power erupts, causing multiple explosions. Theobald is confused about what's happening. The whole place starts shaking with magical energy, and he asks what the girl is trying to do. She dodges the question and tells him to ask Grimoire. As Olivia keeps casting spells, the old man realizes she's from the Arcane School of Flames. He wonders if she's trying to use ancient magic, but can't figure out how she knows that kind of power. Riley tells Theobald to stop the summoning, but if he can't get through to the girl, he's done for. The old man again calls the protagonist's personality problematic. Meanwhile, more power is aimed at him. With a surge of energy, Riley disappears. Olivia keeps chanting with the boy's help. Theobald notices the heat rising rapidly. By the time he realizes it, his opponent is right next to him. The girl locks eyes with him. The battle rages on. Riley needs more strength and glances at Olivia, hoping for a boost. With renewed strength, she sends another powerful blast at the old man. Just a bit longer, and she'll have this under control. Olivia finally gets out everything she wanted to say, followed by a huge explosion. Grimoire declares that the Great Mother of Magic is in charge, and the girl is no fool chasing dreams. The red-haired girl transforms, gaining immense power. She grabs a staff and starts casting even more spells. Riley looks around to see what's going on. Olivia commands the power to burst into flames. Fire starts to spread throughout the area. The flames engulf everything, and Grimoire remarks on the girl's immense power. He then sees Riley lying on the ground. Noticing her injuries aren't too bad, the girl rushes over to him. Panicked, she asks if the boy is all right and insists she'll heal him. But she stumbles and falls, realizing her legs are weak. Grimoire points out that she overused her magic. She's focused, determined, and has a knack for ancient magic. She has the potential to grow and could help the boys later. The girl wakes up, saying she's okay and has something to do. As Grimoire approaches Geraldine's team, he notes the bodies are burned, there's magical backlash, and the internal injuries are serious. They'll need weeks in the temple to recover. The man cast a high-level defensive spell just in time. If it weren't for that, they wouldn't have made it. The girl realizes he's a high-level mage to block such a powerful blast and wonders why he did it. She asks why he went to such lengths to protect them. Grimoire explains that even though they weren't the target of the ancient magic, Theobald's barrier held up against the blast. It wasn't hard to figure out his intentions. He never meant to harm them. The mage questions why he attacked her with the intent to kill, and her friend replies that she struck first. Riley restores their magical circuits, saying that should be enough. Her companion adds that they can handle the rest in the temple or with potions. She picks up the golden golem core and tells Theobald not to take it personally, but she won't rest until she gets back at him for what he did. They'll take the test together again next year. The girl tosses the core off a cliff. She asks her friend if anyone will find it. He says the core's magic is weak and won't last long, so it's impossible. Then he asks about the other one, and the mage thinks it'd be a shame to throw away something they fought hard for, so she keeps it as a memento. Then the girl asks Olivia if she wants to finish the test, pointing out a garden area behind them, and Olivia agrees. They head to the garden, where Grimoire notices no monsters around, and the boy says it's amazing to find peace among the ruins. Olivia asks Riley how she knew about the verse and the magic, and he replies that she promised not to discuss it. She agrees, and Grimoire comments that she's tough to deal with. Looking sad, the girl asks if Beck is really dead, and everyone shares glances. She mentions it's a shame because she thought they could easily pass this test, and she's also upset about losing a friend she had gotten close to. They learned a lot, even with their regrets. In these tricky situations, Riley's skills really took off. Just one more year would do the trick. Next, they'll retake the selection test to grab the attention of the 5 major magical towers and get into Arani's magic tower. Finally, they'll get back at the fake who claimed to be her disciple. Jan Iranis is the head of the magic tower that stole Marna Farhirich's dream of living forever. Grimoire clarifies that immortality was her dream. She was asked to create it for him. Riley wants to know why, and he explains that if the contractor doesn't die, there's no need to train new mages. They could research with a contractor forever. This way he can find the one who turned him into a piece of paper quicker. Even before Marta, there were many tries at immortality, and a lot of her disciples helped out since it was research she developed with them. Now they don't have any reasons to get back at Yan, so they'll team up, which isn't a big deal, but it's still training. The girl says it would be nice to train in peace. As she says this, Olivia gets startled and the girl notices her face is dirty. When she looks up, she sees Rebecca wrapped in hides, asking to be untied. Riley, surprised, asks why she's still alive, and Rebecca shouts that she's just talking nonsense the moment they see each other. She mentions that Garan said he killed her, but the girl insists he lied, saying that to make her give up on the test. Grimoire comments that he gets why they thought she was dead. With the dragon skin around her, she wouldn't have seemed strong. After they untie her, she says Riley's skills impress her every time and asks how she breaks spells so fast since she couldn't free herself. Riley says it's from a lot of hard work. Becky chimes in that it looks like training. The girl tells her friend that something feels off, and he replies that she doesn't have any serious injuries. It's like she didn't fight at all. As she gets closer, Riley says she knows the man lied but wants to ask something. Then she asks why Theobald let her go. Rebecca explains that he told her if he killed her, he wouldn't be any better than her, so he spared her. Instead, he told her to give up on this test as a sign of repentance, which she thinks is absurd. The mage says she doesn't plan to tell the truth, and her friend agrees, mentioning that Becky must have left such a deep wound on him that he couldn't bring himself to kill her. But still, she's perfectly fine. She's hiding the truth with obvious lies. To be clear, the girl is hesitant to share the truth and wonders if it's because the test is being watched. But if she's hiding it, they'll play along, and the mage says what matters is that the girl is alive. While they're alive, the girl comments that they must have given up on the test since she was dead. They exchanged glances, and Rebecca started complaining about having to take the test for the 4th time. She had hoped to escape Theobald, but thought it was impossible. However, Riley shows the core to the girl, who gets super excited and praises her team. She asks how the man didn't take the core, and the girl starts stuttering, asking what happened to her. Meanwhile, Geron's team is leaving, and one of the girls is crying, apologizing. The boy carrying the man on his back says it's all his fault for being careless, because Guy underestimated the girl as a low-level mage and could have taken her down if he had gone all out from the start, and he apologizes to the man. Arpel and Dorothy might have been able to take her down. There are plenty of signs showing they gave it their all. So, they were beaten by a girl who was just a low-level mage. In the end, Radley matched Geralt's strength, and it's wild to think a genius who can outshine Hawks actually exists. He knew she was powerful, but not like this. The man then tells the boy he can walk on his own. The boy insists he needs more rest, but the man says he's fine and takes the blame. It's a shame he had a reason to enter the 5 Great Towers this year, and the boy reassures him that there's always next year. After both give him support, he thanks them, and someone suddenly appears in front of the group. It was Pamela von Hasselpart and her crew, holding one of the golem cores. Of all times to run into an opponent like this when they're worn out, it's best to avoid a fight and make it clear they're not interested. But before they could say anything, she and her team kneel down to surrender. Pamela offers to hand over the core in exchange for their lives. One of her teammates asks why they gave up, especially since the man looks like he might collapse. The team leader then asks the boy if he plans to take on Sir Theobald, leaving him shocked. He asks his master what their next move is, and she says they still have about 10 minutes, and finding a core isn't impossible. The administrator watches the test results. Riley's team, Garon's, and Pamela's are all shown. The team steps outside into a snowstorm. Riley comments that the air feels nice out here. Rebecca mentions how well they were taken care of thanks to the priest's kindness, but even after 2 days in the temple, she still feels drained. Feeling sleepy, she asks the team if the test is in a week. Then, in a flashback, the administrator explains that the test will be one-on-one interviews with each tower master, with more details coming later. Grimoire argues that these interviews are a perfect chance to showcase his disciples' strengths. He adds that he'll finally get to meet Yana Ren's face-to-face. Rebecca says she needs to rest, and Riley asks where she'll be staying. She replies that she knows someone in Wilhelm, so she'll crash at their place for a bit. Excited, she asks the girl if she hadn't already mentioned that, and the girl confirms she did, saying she recommended the protagonist to a celestial whale and would stay with a friend. Becky jokes about visiting him again, making loony young woman furious. She bids farewell to the group, promising to meet them at the final test. Riley asks Olivia where she'll be staying, and she says it'll be at the Steamwood Grand Hotel, where everyone will coincidentally be. As the group heads to the hotel, the mage splits off, saying she'll stop by the Arcadia Library first, while the girl tells Grimoire she just wants to go to her room and rest. She adds that she plans to do nothing all day but eat ice cream and enjoy a hot bath, and Grimoire awkwardly agrees. Riley arrives at the hotel, opening the door with positive vibes, only to find Geron's team inside. The man is surprised to see her there too, and Dorothy steps forward, locking the door and calling out to the girl in a scary tone. Dorothy recognizes her and asks if her name is Riley. Showing a lot of familiarity, she hugs Riley and says her full name, with Dorothy Gruyard immediately declaring that they must be friends. Riley jokingly asks if anyone offered a core to Sir Theobald so they could have passed the second test, and Dorothy laughs, saying yes. Grimoire looks confused and asks if they really bought their way through the test, suggesting that fan loyalty could be a fair way to get approval. Garin mentions that everyone passed, and Grimoire says he doesn't want to think about it anymore. Dorothy excitedly asks Riley if they can take the test together since they won't be competing against each other. The mage agrees but wonders why Dorothy likes her so much even after hitting her, to which Dorothy replies it was part of the test and that she likes pretty and cute girls. Arpel asks Riley if she wants to join them, and she says she had other plans, but the young man convinces her with the promise of special dishes from a royal chef. She joins the group, enjoying the delicious food, and Grimoire comments on her passion for food, to which Riley says she's just growing. Pamela asks the protagonist if she knows where the last core is, saying it's at the bottom of a cliff, so deep you can't see the bottom. She continues in a panicked tone, saying the administrators must be clueless for leaving the core in such a hard-to-reach spot, and she's going to confront whoever's responsible. Grimoire tells her it was them who did this, and she should just keep quiet. Geron praises her for finding the core with only 10 minutes left in the test, saying she deserves the title of Best Explorer in Wilhelm. Pamela insists that it was her guild's mage, Gilbert Winifred, who found it. She goes on to say that Gilbert is her beloved student, and that he discovered nearly all the golden golems in the ruins. Goran expresses interest in learning more about him, and Pamela agrees, mentioning Gilbert's amazing mana affinity. Grimoire points out that the mage doesn't react to compliments, but he was indeed talented, and could have been a high-level mage before he passed away, while the young woman calls him arrogant. Pamela continues to praise him, joking that no one finished the first test faster than he did. Dorothy chimes in, saying she heard Rebecca Duncan was the fastest, asking if Gilbert beat her, and the girl suggests ignoring Rebecca for using tricks. Still singing his praises, she reveals that he passed the test by finding the administration office in just 2 days, earning him second place in the rankings. Aaron jumps in, saying if it really took him 2 days, he shouldn't be in second place. Pamela argues that it's unfair to compare someone who used Fine Path to Rebecca, who relied on clones, but Garam clarifies he wasn't even talking about her. The man turns to Riley and asks how long it took her to finish the first test, while Grimoire comments that he already knows the answer. The maid shares with the group that she completed it in half a day, specifically 6 hours and 30 minutes, leaving everyone at the table stunned. Geron beams with pride for her, and Grimoire jokingly asks if she's his granddaughter or something. Pamela is completely shocked and asks if it really took 6 hours and 30 minutes. While the young mage stops eating and goes silent, Gilbert puts down his fork and stands up, questioning how Riley, a low-level mage, could achieve such a thing, expressing his doubts. In his jealousy, he points at her and asks if she truly deserves to take the final test. The boy mentions that the magical disruption affecting Wilhelm was tough to deal with, and because of the leftover magic, spells aren't working right. He accuses Riley of being dishonest to get this far. Dorothy interrupts, asking if he can beat her in a fight. However, the boy stays quiet since she's a veteran mage at the top of the mid-level. The girl tells him to hush up, reminding him that the mage defeated both her and Arpel at once. Shocked, he turns to Arpel, who confirms that she passed the selection test fairly. He mutters that it doesn't make sense for a low-level girl to pass, but Garan cuts him off. The man says everyone understands his feelings, but since she passed the second test, there's no reason to doubt it. At first, he also doubted Dorothy and underestimated her, which cost him. Just like with Arpel, having doubts about an opponent's skills isn't a bad thing. Doubt is a natural trait for a mage. He wraps up by asking if he really needed to voice these doubts here, and suggests taking a moment to think it over. Gilbert gets upset and embarrassed by the reprimand. This was supposed to be a celebration for passing the test, and they were among more experienced mages. There was no need for that kind of doubt and hostility. Pamela, trying to smooth things over, says her student has been with her for a long time, and she'll teach him properly later. She gives him a pat on the back, telling him to apologize. He bows and says sorry for his rudeness. The man says he understands and suggests that if he really has doubts, he should challenge Riley to a duel, which she would probably welcome. When he asks her, she says a duel would be great and it would be an honor. Grimoire asks if it's necessary to show killing intent at the end, and she replies that it's annoying to be challenged, but now everything is calm. He agrees there shouldn't be any more disturbances, but he feels uneasy. Someone knocks at the door, and Pamela invites them in. Olivia opens the door, saying the hotel staff sent her, and when she sees her, the woman screams in shock. The girl keeps screaming for help, and Grimoire mentions he sensed this would happen. She adds that it looks like her meal will be noisy for a while. After some time, everyone starts saying their goodbyes. Riley asks her friend if there's any way to speed up the second awakening, and he asks if she feels her limits. The second awakening is a blessing that happens when a mage feels they've become an adult. It's the final stage where the attribute flora occurs, and the mage's level rises quickly. Grimoire points out that she faced a lot of mages in the second test, and it's normal to feel her limits when up against them. She knows enough utility magic, but her offensive options are pretty weak, and her skills in localization and nullification are just backup. Her only attack spell is a magic missile. Grimoire suggests that the best way to break through that limit is to speed up the second awakening, which is tough but not impossible. This process goes against the natural flow of magic, making it really complicated and painful. He mentions that only a few of his students have managed to pull it off. Plus, her talent won't really help here. It's all about determination and hard work. He questions why she'd want to go through such a struggle when she'd awaken in about 5 years anyway, suggesting she could use that time to train instead. But if she's set on it, he won't stop her, and she agrees to go for it. With a grin, the boy says that if that's her choice, there's nothing more to discuss. Honestly, even if she had said no, he planned to convince her anyway. If he pushed her, it would be for revenge. They were both reading a magic book about mana and how it can bloom. The blooming method is simple. Just fill up the mana. Riley asks if the early awakening reaction is meant to make up for the lack of mana, and the boy agrees. But they need high-quality mana for the early awakening, which he finds is a bit contradictory. From now on, the girl will have to trick her mana. Instead of boosting her mana, she'll need to fool her mana heart. Where the seed blooms, her body will think she's completed the second awakening, allowing her to naturally become a full mage, expanding her mana circuits and strengthening her mana heart. She asks if it's really possible, and he says yes, noting that if everything goes smoothly, it could take up to 5 weeks. In reality, it'll take longer since there's a lot to do. She needs to create a barrier in her body to hold more mana for a while, among many other tasks. Hearing this, she says it sounds tough, and Grimoire replies that it'll feel like she's dying and might be the hardest thing she's faced so far. With a smile, he adds that the bigger the reward, the greater the pain. Then Riley says she'll give it a shot and casts magic on her heart. When she feels pain, the boy tells her to hang in there. The coming weeks will be rough. 5 days into the awakening, Riley echoes Grimoire's words about how tough and painful her weeks will be. Still, she managed to gather a lot of magic, and mentions he only said that to motivate her, which wasn't the case. Thanks to that, she completed the early awakening faster than anyone else, and thanks her friend, who insists it wasn't just for encouragement. Grimoire then asks if she's thought about enduring all the pain at once, as finishing 5 weeks and 5 days would be 7 times more intense than the usual process. Riley says she found it manageable, so she didn't see the point in dragging it out. The boy notes that other disciples usually fainted. She replies that she's been through worse training in the Thieves Guild, so this pain feels minor. She wonders what they did to make her so resistant to pain, recalling terrible tortures disguised as mental training, like being given dry food with no drink while food was right in front of her, which was more painful than the awakening. Grimoire praises her effort and reveals her attribute is lightning. She asks if that's good, and the boy confirms it is. It's versatile and one of a kind. It combines the destructive force of fire with the speed of wind. It covers attack, defense, and support. Grimoire says he plans to teach her everything about lightning and train her to be a complete lightning mage without any weaknesses. Then he asks if she's ever been struck by lightning, since her affinity is strong. The nature of a mana attribute isn't random. It builds up and reflects your personality, experiences, surroundings, and past struggles. For instance, a mage who almost drowned might end up with the water attribute, while someone from a windy area could get the wind attribute. The girl mentions she's never seen lightning, so the boy suggests her thief nature might have shifted into this attribute. But a strong connection like that doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It's still a bit suspicious. Riley feels good since her mana has improved and wants to try out her new power. Grimoire tells her it's great that she's happy and that hands-on practice is key, so he invites her to go outside. The tricky part is finding something to test her skills on, so he suggests heading to the city. As they walk, Gilbert shows up in their way. He challenges her to a duel, and her friend's eyes light up. The duel quickly turns into a big event with a crowd gathering to watch, including the evaluators. Just 5 days ago, the young man was going over the test in his head, thinking about his progress and how he wouldn't back down from the mage. 4 days ago, he was looking for her to set up the duel. 3 days ago, he discovered she was staying in a room right across from Garon's and hadn't left. 2 days ago, he knocked on her door but got no response, assuming she was scared of the duel. The day before, Gilbert noticed her door was still locked and called her a coward. On duel day, he was convinced it was fear holding her back, even though he knew he was likely to lose. She and Garong were chatting, and the mage wondered if they were just plotting strategies for their next test. Pamela calls out to the boy, who was lost in thoughts about losing. She reassures him not to stress since the girl is a low-level mage with limited resources and no attribute. The duel was drawing attention from the big names in the magical world and the magic representatives. This was her chance to show what she could do. Gilbert agrees he's a genius. But then the announcer starts introducing the participants, highlighting the mage trained by Pamela and Riley, who's recognized by Garon. And just like that, the duel kicks off. The young man thinks he's not scared of her thanks to his master's advice, and it's time to show the difference in their skills. Both are ready to attack. Riley goes down after just 2 hits, leaving everyone stunned. The mage thinks his master was right, as the duel was clearly in his favor. Garon shows up with his team, and one of them says the boy has real talent, while another apologizes for the dinner. The man asks him to be his disciple, and he replies he's grateful but is only a disciple of Pamela. Still, he says he'll support him, even if he's not his disciple, sticking to his principles. The administrator steps in, saying there's no need for the final selection test, since he'd get immediate entry into the 5 magical towers. With so many offers coming in, Gilbert can't stop laughing. Meanwhile, Riley stands up and asks Grimoire what's up with the young man. He's on the ground laughing uncontrollably, and the book says he must be dreaming something good. Grimoire thought he'd at least hold up against a training dummy. The mage couldn't take even 1 hit. The girl points out that despite that, they totally achieved their goal of promoting themselves. Smiling, Grimoire says everyone's looking at her like she's a monster, which is exactly the kind of attention they wanted. Geron walks over, surprised that her attribute has already developed, and asks how she did it. With the response ready from the boys, she says she had a moment of clarity. She explains that while fighting a guy, she had a sudden insight. Not wanting to lose that feeling, she locked herself away to meditate, and that's when the awakening happened. He says his instincts were spot on and calls her a genius. The administrator mentions she witnessed the fight and thinks the lightning attribute really fits her. Becky asks if the girl isn't going to thank her for gathering everyone to watch the duel, which turned out to be a hit. The mage replies that by that logic, the girl should thank her first, since she helped her pass the test. Just then, Dorothy jumps in, showering her with praise and congratulating her while holding her hands. Annoyed by the compliments, Grimoire says it's time to get some answers. The administrator steps up, saying she has some extra news to share. So, the final test will be a one-on-one interview with each master of the towers. Each of the 5 major towers gets to nominate a candidate. The one who gets nominated will have the first interview with that specific tower. If they get accepted by the first tower, all the other interviews will be canceled. Grimoire comments that this setup feels like a dating game, and the girl adds that if a friend gets nominated, they're basically in. Dorothy asks how they decide the order if someone gets multiple nominations, and she says that person can choose for themselves. Riley points out that if nominations are happening now, the list must have been made a couple of days ago, and her master agrees. So, the duel was pointless, and Grimoire chimes in, saying they should have helped her awaken her attribute sooner. But it's too late now, and it doesn't matter if they get nominated since they're focused on Irene's magic tower. The Wunda kicks things off by announcing the candidates each tower has nominated. First up is the Blue Magic Tower of Eucria. This tower, founded alongside the Empire, earned its reputation by producing the Archmage, Ein Schiesken. The nomination from the Blue Magic Tower of Eucria goes to Garen Edward von Theobald, which was expected since the 5 major towers are looking for top-notch mages. Next, the White Magic Tower of Dwight and the stunning Violet Tower of Gaia also nominated Garen. His followers are shocked by the number of nominations. The nomination from the Red Magic Tower of Yadin Gredin went to Olivia. She's overwhelmed, and Rebecca teases her about her prestigious last name. It's no surprise she thinks she's talented, and she wonders why Olivia would mix ancient magic with such a background. But Garen cuts in, saying Olivia managed to use heavy ancient magic, which she missed because she wasn't there. Rebecca tries to argue, but the administrator steps in, confirming that Garen is telling the truth. Since the girl used ancient magic, it caught the attention of the master of the Red Tower. Shocked, Becky asks if that's true. Grimoire explains that the Red Tower focuses on powerful fire spells, so it makes sense they noticed Olivia, just like everyone noticed Garen. The woman then moves on to the 5th nomination from the colorless Magic Tower of Orontes. The atmosphere gets tense as Riley's name is announced loudly. Aeon Orontes, the master of Orontes' magic, used the nomination right for her. All the nominated mages were chatting with their tower members during a banquet. Watching everything, Riley comments that they're treating the candidates like they've already passed. Grimoire notes that the final test is tomorrow, but the banquet feels pretty laid back. That one-on-one interview with the Tower Master might just be a formality, and the final test might not even be the real test. Rebecca, appearing a bit tipsy, asks if the girl has talked to the officials, and she replies not really. She mentions that the Eucria Tower is the best, but the other towers steer clear of it. But after what she did, nobody likes her. When asked what she did, she questions if they don't already know. Before she can say more, Geron shows up to interrupt them. He asks Becky if she plans to go to the Eucria Tower, and she says she's following in her mom's footsteps. Her mom was a well-known alchemist connected to the Eucria Tower. The girl wonders if she'll go there to be with her mom, but she replies that they can't work together. Riley asks why, and the girl says her mom died 11 years ago. She teases the girl, saying it's easy to apologize now since she's protected and wouldn't get it. Shocking everyone at the table, the girl replies that she lost her whole family too. Becky apologizes and downs her wine. To lighten things up, she shares that she used to visit the tower a lot as a kid and got close to the mistress, even calling her aunt. Riley questions if that was really okay, and the girl says it wasn't an issue. She mentions she stayed at the annex with her during the whole test. The girl wonders if that was allowed, and the mage says a lot of people cheat. She points to Arpel, saying her mentor is also in charge of the selection test. The girl asks why the administrator is so young, and Rebecca explains that high officials from Myrantes can stay young forever, thanks to an immortality ritual. She wasn't the only one with connections. Even Garan was a colleague of the Eucria Tower Master. Riley asks Grimoire if that's true, and he says the magic world is small, with mages having lots of connections. The mage questions if those connections could sway the selection test results. He says no, using her as an example since everyone's interested in her. Garland then asks the girl if she plans to head to Erantis. The girl mentions the man's expression has been odd since the start, so she confirms she will go there. He starts to suggest she think it over, but the administrator shows up, telling her to accept. She grabs a chair and asks if she can join them to chat. She apologizes for introducing herself late and says she's the head administrator of the selection. Her name is Isabella, a Trabuxa mage. When Rebecca asks, she reveals she's Olivia's great-aunt. Rinmore comments that she should be about the same age as the girl's grandmother. When asked if she's from Orontes, she says she's one of the 7 elders and assures Riley she won't regret it. Her explanation continues without interruption. With 300 years behind them, the 5 great towers were founded. She speaks as if she's rehearsed, saying they've kept the reputation, nature, and vision of Orontes alive. She adds that they achieved the immortality ritual after inheriting it from the archmage Marta Farharich. In the end, it sounds absurd. The woman mentions the master was really interested in Riley, even using the right to nominate her without hesitation. She also says he asked her to let Riley know that if she joins the tower, they'll support her in every way. She says they can discuss more details during the interview and wishes her a nice evening. Grimoire notes that Ayan wasn't marked as a disciple, and the fact that she's spilling lies so easily means she's scheming with the Tower Master. He would have punched her if it weren't for the paper. Riley asks what she should do, and the boy says to just focus on the interview and relax after the banquet. In the room, someone knocks on the door, but they don't know who it is. Behind the door, Rebecca screams, but Jaren pulls her aside, asking them to open the door. They wonder why they showed up. Once inside, the man sets up a spy detector on the door, and Grim wonders what kind of talk they were planning. Then the man warns Riley not to go to the Irantes Tower. When asked why, he says a war is about to start, and after it's over, Irantes won't exist anymore. Grimoire and his descent start to comment, but Becky calls out to the man. She asks how Irantes could disappear, and he just says she's drunk. After clearing her mind, the girl asks what he meant, and after Guran presses her, she talks about how she earned the nomination, her story, and how the tower's mindset is open, adapting to change and welcoming new ideas quickly, which is why it's the favorite. But the truth was different. Rebecca asks the girl if she knows why they got so strong in just 300 years. She says it's because the tower's master was Marta's disciple. After Marta passed away, nobody held the Archmage title for 300 years, which really mattered. Becky insists she's not mistaken, but there's another reason for the rise of Arantes' tower. It's what Grimoire and Marta dedicated their lives to, but Ions is the one who claims to have cracked the code on immortality magic. The mage granted immortality to 7 elders and other top officials who pledged total loyalty to him. It was pretty much a dictatorship since, with the ritual, the tower's master stays the same. Like any organization, the tower can't escape politics, but with absolute power, it could stick to one path. Becky goes on to say that wealthy nobles back the tower to get the immortality ritual, so they have no money issues. Riley points out that the tower only thrived in those 300 years because of the immortality ritual. But something feels off. We've got the undead who cheat death and the necromancers using dark magic. Those who challenge death and break heavenly laws carry a permanent mark, known as demonic energy. The girl wonders why the mages at the I-Rank's tower using the ritual don't give off demonic energy, and Becky chimes in. The woman replies that it's unclear since there's still debate over the ritual's pros and cons. That's why Aeon isn't an Archmage. Riley then asks Grimoire the same question, but he's stumped too, which is why he sees the mage as a fraud. It's a ritual even Grimoire couldn't master, but the real issue is figuring out how to expose this fraud. However, during the 300 years he was out cold, it seems not everyone was clueless. It's unlikely Rebecca gathered all this info by herself, meaning there are other forces against the Irantist magical towers. Becky mentions 3 groups opposing the tower. The Imperial family, worried that the powerful will overshadow them forever because of the ritual. The Great Temple fears that disrupting the life and death cycle could break the heavens, and the other 5 magic towers are wary of the tower's rapid rise and are taking steps to keep it in check. Riley notes that must have been a lot of pressure, and Rebecca agrees, saying the tower kept growing regardless, but they never hesitated to eliminate obstacles. They'd do whatever it took, and Becky adds that she and Garen lost loved ones in the process. She finishes by saying they killed her mother and Sharon. Grimoire relates to those feelings, since they both wanted revenge on the same target as he does. The man then explains this is why Riley couldn't get in, and the girl asks if they want to hear her plan. So that wraps up the video. If you don't want to miss the next part, hit that notification bell, and catch you next time on Todd's channel.